You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent Austen Show.
Well, Shad Khan, not the most popular guy in Jacksonville right now. That is for sure. Trent Baalke probably still leads the way in the unpopularity contest, but wasn't a good day on Monday for the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. Wasn't a good day for the owner. Wasn't a good news conference. And now the Jags do move on, and this is where things can hopefully turn for them. And I think it will in the context of a new coach. Already we're seeing that out there. But good morning, everybody. It's cold in Jacksonville, by the way. Cold morning out here. How you doing? Tough question. Is that as profound as the poll was right after the news conference?
Holy cow. What were the final results on that, baby?
I just was telling somebody about it. 96% to 4 has stayed the number through 4,000 votes. So I guess as I had Freddie tell me, read the room. Well, right. I was just asking the room. But, yeah, I mean, it just was bad. Zoom calls don't work, first of all.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Zoom calls don't work. It just doesn't. And I know they were trying to make up a little bit for last year where Baalke didn't talk forever, so you appreciate the attempt to talk. But even that backfired on him. And I'll just say this from a logistics standpoint. First of all, it's very hard from a questioning and queue, and I mean, everybody's trying to get questions in, and not everybody got questions in. Some people were like this in the video. And so it's hard. It's hard to manage it. It's hard to bounce back and forth. There's cutting off. Shad got cut off several times because of the delay. These things are, I guess we're accustomed to them, and we know them. We know it's nobody's fault. We just know they're not as good. And, somebody said this to me. Yes, I did not think of this at all. And I thought it was a very good point. Like, Shad not being in Jacksonville all the time doesn't bother me at all. All right? I know he's in communication all the time, and there can be certainly something to be said for that. And why, again, I write that article and say you need somebody protecting here in Jacksonville, him and the building and the franchise and everything else. So I think you can set it up, which maybe they will now, to the point of, you can mitigate that. But I didn't think about this at all until last night, and somebody who actually doesn't live here said he's kind of known as a distant owner, right? He's not here in the building all the time. I was like, yeah, well, then why the Zoom call? That only makes it feel more distant. I was like, man, I guess that's a good point. I didn't think about it like that. So just on a lot of levels, it didn't go well. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. It just didn't go well. Now, it doesn't mean there weren't things that came out of it that were pretty profound and now give us a little bit of a roadmap of where to go. The explanations. I told you this yesterday, guys. I mean, and gals and everybody. You weren't going to hear what you wanted to hear. You weren't going to get what you wanted to get. And when you don't hear what you want to hear, and by the way, I'm not telling you you shouldn't feel that way, but I knew you weren't going to get it. Go back to the show yesterday, and I said, you ain't going to come out of this thing feeling good. Because you're not going to get the blood that you wanted. And you didn't. And because of that, you felt even worse. Now, on top of that, there was some clunky stuff to go with it that you didn't feel good either. But at the end of the day, fans, and just in general, especially when there's things not going well, you want those folks in charge to feel the way you do. And quite frankly, it's not that I don't know if it's that they don't feel that way. They're certainly not going to profess it to the emotion, the anger, the vitriol of everybody else that's going to do it on here. That's just the way it goes. So, I mean, we knew it was set up to not be great in that respect, for the fans to not feel much better coming out of it. Now, I think what people felt even a little bit worse because of the kind of the clunky nature of it and what went down and what was said at times. We're going to get into it, of course, and really try to find the stuff that actually has impact on moving forward or what really went on in Jacksonville. But there's just so much going on in Jacksonville right now. And, I just told him, there's the ball. Actually, 0.3, we're flipping it. We're flipping it. I mean, what are we doing? We got
a couple yes votes.
I mean, as people were joking around, be like, the Baalke burner is alive and well, or several of them. I will say this that crossed my mind. I said this with Rich Jones this morning on WOKV too. We get this a lot about Shad, right? I mean, there are a lot of people critical of Shad. And one of the things you get is like, all he cares about is money. All he cares about the money. All he cares about the money. And I'm like, I never really buy that all he cares about the money, in part because, first of all, he has enough of it. I mean, he's a billionaire, one of the richest men in the world. I don't think he probably doesn't know if he's got more money in his bank account today than he did yesterday. I mean, it's like, it's got to be pretty marginal. It can't be a marginal uptick. It's got to be pretty loud. So it's going to be a pretty hefty purchase that hampers that bank account. So I don't agree with that sentiment. He spends a ton of money here on this team. He always gives resources, all those things. Like, that is why this job is actually coveted in many respects. Mm-hmm. And then I would just say this to the folks that think the money part, if he cared that much about money, he would have fired Baalke and then came with the fan base and nobody would be saying, I'm not buying tickets. Like, he could have sold tickets yesterday. Right? The easiest decision to sell tickets was fire them both, get a new coach in, here we go. So if you really think he cares that much about the dollars, well, selling tickets is that's dollars. Momentum, dollars. And he didn't do that. He did just the opposite. I mean, you couldn't feel worse on a Monday. So, I mean, it was a miserable Monday in Jacksonville, and it could have been like totally the opposite. Totally the opposite if he just did what everybody wanted him to do. So I just don't buy the money thing. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense in my mind to me. And there are a lot of things that don't make sense about this organization in my mind. But that one, from a fan base and everything else, it just doesn't. I don't get that part. Like, that's not it. I know he wants to win. He puts resources into trying to win. He just hadn't figured it out. And I don't think this decision right here helps you figure it out. I think we've been pretty loud about that. To go backwards a little bit, I think we got to start here. By the way, Austin will join us. He's got a Tuesday sparring session. He is punching the bag and somebody else for you today.
Yeah.
So he will join us about halfway through from South Florida. And Brent Martineau, Jason Hamby here. Jump in the chat. I think we want to get right to the sound on some of this, right? And there are two main things I want to do today. One is you got to go back to what was said and what can we find from this news conference that is actually productive after we vent a little bit about some of it more. And then, to me, the other side is, okay, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, those guys have already been on the list, right? They're already requested, according to reports. And so, here we go. So what does this job look like? Who are they going to get? I think it's an easy formula. If we do an envelope game this time, I can tell you what, I'm putting the young play caller in. Because I think they tip their hand at who they're going at. And I'll tell you why they would be going at, I thought, even before the news conference. I think there's a lot of momentum that Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen especially, are on the top of their list. I would even put a Cliff Kingsbury in this conversation, even though I'm not a big fan of it.
Joe Brady, maybe.
Joe Brady. Those are the four guys right now. I think Monken doesn't fit this. Monken's older guy.
Right.
I think he could be on this, but I don't feel like he fits here. He fits more the Doug Peterson kind of mode. So I think it's clear as day. Never been more clear, maybe, other than the Urban situation when they were just like targeting Urban, that who the Jags are going to get. Or like what kind of coach they're going to get. Now, who they end up with, different story. So we'll get into that and why I think that and some of the sound that supports that as well. But I think we got to go backwards first for a moment. I thought, you can hammer this news conference as much as you want, and we have and we will and we've done it, and it wasn't great. But I also thought, given all this stuff, it was the loudest Shad's ever been, maybe ever been, in terms of critical of a coach. So let's listen to the one, if we can, Hamby.
Yeah.
I don't know how quick you can pull it up, about Doug and the vanilla scheme and the predictable scheme. Because if you really say, why did he fire Doug Peterson? I think this is why he fired Doug Peterson. Now, it also goes into somehow that play calling comes up too, right? Because Trent Baalke and Shad Khan wanted him to call plays like you did too. And all of us kind of did too. Doug was the only one. He was dying on that hill. And so you add that to an offense that was explained like this by Shad Khan, and you get that whole play calling scheme. And it's not just the offensive side. He mentions the defense too. And we know that Nielsen runs a very simplistic defense. The guys that run the simplistic defenses around the league didn't have a good day yesterday. Gus Bradley got fired as well from the Indianapolis Colts, and he runs a very simple scheme. One that's worked in the league for a lot of years, but also looks like it's kind of dying out. And Nielsen has a little bit of the same ingredients of that with a very simplistic kind of scheme. So here's Shad Khan. You got it?
But this is the one where he's asked about the pool of networks, right? And who he asked for advice and why he says, right, I don't even need it because I'm looking right at it.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, Shad, appreciate your time. Hey, Trent. Shad, you mentioned being lean. I'm curious, who outside of Trent do you lean on football-related decisions? Who's sort of your brain trust outside of Trent?
Well, I think obviously, Doug was, okay. The coordinators were. So like, a decision like, Trevor, for example. I believe in him, but everyone, whether his position coach, OC, everyone weighed in, and it was very positive. And then, outside the football building, I think Ethan is another one. Really competent. You've got analytics that is, gives you a measurement. It's like, we were, I think, 20th last year on defensive side. We're 32 now. Okay, so that right there kind of tells you that in trying to get better, we got much worse, and that's part of our problem. So you don't need someone's advice or sounding board to tell you that. I think those metrics kind of speak out very loud. And then you end up with a network of not only other owners, but some of the NFL infrastructure to really get a sense and a viewpoint of where things are.
So there's Shad talking about, that's not specific. Do we have the other one? You let me know if we have it. We don't. I can read the quote. But all that actually was pretty informative about who's making the decisions and helping get to the point where we're getting to where you do fire coaches or you extend players and the Trevor stuff and everything else. But I thought that was part of it. But the most damning part of it was obviously the play of, hey, this scheme is the most predictable scheme in the National Football League. And Hammy, you let me know if we have it or not. You do have it? You want me ready to play it? All right, go ahead.
Are there any qualities that stand out that you want in your next head coach?
Well, I think, we obviously, want him. We want him to represent the city and the team, obviously, well. We want him to win. And, right now, we are the most predictable team on both sides of the ball, okay? And football, to win, deception is a big part of it, unpredictability. If you know exactly what we're going to do on offense or defense, you better have the 22 best players, to help us win a football game. So being unpredictable is, I think, is modern football, and, we have to be able to show that on the field.
So I think what's interesting about all that is, first of all, I think fans would agree mostly, right? That they've been unpredictable, or they are predictable, sorry, and simple. There isn't a lot of design. We asked this early in the year. We asked it late last season. Remember I always bring up the Kirk stuff. Kirk would go line up in the backfield, and Agnew, if you remember him, kind of in and out, and the eye candy stuff. Like, it was so nice to see that in 2022 because we really hadn't seen that. I remember sitting in a production meeting. I think it was actually in Detroit, ironically, before last season. Remember when the Jags practiced with them for the week, and we were before that preseason game. And I remember saying to Doug, I was like, Doug, I know like we're asking you some like pretty mundane questions or seem wowed by some of this stuff like that you guys did at the end of last year and the way that offense looks. But you got to understand, like, we have not seen offense in Jacksonville. I've been here for 15 years and we haven't seen offense in Jacksonville. I literally said that to him. Then 2 weeks later, he says Press Taylor's calling plays and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And then all this year, like, none of that stuff. Again, I'm not an X's and O's guy. Everybody thinks they know football. I don't sit here and say, I watched a tape like a lot of guys in front of a microphone. I don't do that. But I think we also can see stuff, right? Like, we can see what it looks like and what it's different. And it wasn't the same. Where's the eye candy? Where's the motion? You know what they did do? The last 4, 5, 6 weeks, they got better at doing some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. They wrinkled it up a little bit. They wrinkled it up more with Brian Thomas Jr., et cetera. Like, there was more of that. There was less predictability, I would call it. So I don't think Shad's wrong. I think what people are asking is, okay, well, Trent Baalke told him that. Okay, Trent Baalke told him that. That's fine. Trent Baalke's not the only guy that told him that. I think this is a very important part of this. Because every time I've said this was the most profound moment of the news conference yesterday is when he hammers the staff for doing it. Like, he absolutely crushed them for being like that, for being predictable. And everybody's response is, well, he's sitting next to Trent Baalke. Who you think told him that? Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But he also said on the previous soundbite, he talks to a lot of different players and a lot of different people inside the organization. Ethan Waugh might be saying that. You don't think he talks to like former players like Baselli and Lagerman a little bit? Like, maybe they're the ones saying that. You don't think he talks to Trevor Lawrence a lot? Absolutely. We've got video of him talking to Trevor Lawrence. Is this the little bit of a disconnect between the players we heard in the locker room yesterday saying, yeah, man, we really appreciate Doug. We respect Doug. But at the same time, you can like your boss and say, I think he can do a little bit more for us. And I think this is maybe where that whole Trevor thing comes from and that camp stuff and maybe this little like, yeah, we could be doing more. Like, we're not set up to be as good as we could be. So I don't think this stopped at, well, Trent told me so this is what I'm saying. I think that's unfair to say because I think he goes to a lot of different wells to get his information. And also, he might be hearing that from other people around the league. I just, well, that was more of a Doug Peterson related thing with LaShawn McCoy, but like, there are conversations all the time around the league. And, I mean, Tony Khan, even if Shad doesn't hear everything on social media and everything else, which he obviously doesn't, I think Tony Khan can actually do some of that, relay some of that, and say, like, he knows, he looks at football like we would look at football sometimes and watches these other games. And not to say Shad doesn't, but it's like, but you don't have to be an X's and O football guy to just look at the Detroit Lions right now, what they're doing, or the Rams, what they do, or the Bucks and what they do, or the Ravens and what they do, and say, why can't we do that? How many times do you watch a Jazz game and be like, why can't we at least try to do that? Shad can say that. It doesn't need to be given to him by Trent Baalke. And then the metrics all added up and other stuff. I mean, there's illustrations of this, Hamby. So I thought that was the biggest part of the news conference, that hammering Doug, and also the tell that says, guess what? The next guy coming in here is innovative, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think to say that Shad is just the puppet for Trent and whatever Trent tells Shad is 100% believe what he believes. I don't think that's fair at all. I think Shad is being truthful when he says he really does pull from a lot of different people as far as advice. Again, it doesn't take much to look. Shad knows that when we saw an end-around jet sweep to BTJ in week 14, and everybody was like, "Wow, that was something we hadn't seen." He knows that that's very telling. Right, and he's probably thinking the same thing where, Brian Thomas Jr. is finally getting involved in the run game or we do something innovative like that, which is should not be called innovative because that was maybe innovative 15 years ago. But how new that is. And he the eye test is enough for stuff like that. As far as the when he was talking about analytics, yeah, we were middle of the pack, defensively last year, and now we were 32nd. And when he talks about that's a lot, and he pretty much said, I think in another bite, where if we were back in the middle, how many more games would he have won? I think that is case in point why everything was pointed at the coaching staff, Doug and Doug's hiring of Ryan Nielsen. I would group those two things together.
Yep.
Because Shad right there is telling you, bro, if we just had a better defense, if we just had the defense that we did last year, we might have been an 8-win football team. We might have been in the mix late in the season. And I think he wholeheartedly believes that. And, I remember when you asked him your last part of your three, when you was like, is it fair to say that the finger is being pointed at the coaching staff? And he kind of played it off of, yes, we're all in it together and we're all fully responsible. But I think it was obvious that, yes, Shad's full finger was pointed right at Doug and Doug's hiring of Ryan Nielsen.
We kind of got to this yesterday, by the way, before the news conference. There's no doubt when Trent Baalke was coming back, Shad was on Team Baalke in two respects, in my opinion, that really are prevailing respects. One is, well, I wrote the checks for this team, and that's the guy that said this is the best team, and I believe it. That's why I wrote the checks. I believe this team is way better than 4 wins. And I would say this, you do too, and I do too. Now, I don't know how much better. That's what they have to weigh. Like, how much was it a bag of goods? How much was it a miscalculation of roster, how good it is? Because that's a conversation. But we do know it's better than 4 wins. We know it's better than 4 wins. So he's on Team Baalke there, and I think he's on Team Baalke on the offensive scheme and play calling, because we also know both of those guys wanted Doug to be calling plays. So if we don't know a lot, we know that. And we said that before the news conference, and I think it was echoed in the news conference in a different kind of way. But I think the important part of this to also note, the reason why I lead with this today, is the next guy in Jacksonville is most likely, like 99% sure, they tipped their hand. And he doesn't tip his hand much. But didn't he tip his hand that this is a young, innovative play caller, or at least an innovative play caller? And I would say young on top of that, because you got a couple of those guys. You got the Ben Johnsons, you got the Liam Cohens. And young is relative, in the National Football League when you're talking about a head coach. But I think he tipped his hand, and Hamby, he doesn't tip his hand very often.
No, and the biggest thing there is, again, because he said both were asked about how quick of a turnaround this could be. And they both said relatively short, like as in next year, they kind of hinted at. They believe that we could be right back where we were in the first 2 years under Doug. Well, what does that tell you? They think that they're a coach away, because they have the current roster, that Shad still believes in the roster, Trent still believes in the roster, that they're a coach away from being right back there. And it furthers the echo of everything was pointed at the coaching staff, because they got the guys, they think.
All right, so that's one element. I thought that was a big element. The other thing, just on the news conference side, I thought they dispelled some rumors, right, of last year, the retirement stuff.
Yep.
Now, I feel like this has been asked before. Maybe it was an off-the-record type deal, but this was the first time, I guess, on camera. And honestly, I said this on the show yesterday. I thought retirement could still be in play for Trent Baalke. So that's what I was thinking. And he dispelled that. The other thing that I think got dispelled in all this, and you remember everybody was saying that Baalke hired Ryan Nielsen?
Mm-hmm. That was dispelled yesterday. I
mean, obviously he didn't, or Shad doesn't know he did, which, by the way, was always a dumb theory. The guy does not, the GM does not hire coaches. The GM's on the hook for so many other things anyway. Just because he's in a room in an interview doesn't mean he's doing the hiring. Why would he want to be responsible for the guy being bad? I was talking to some folks around the league yesterday, and they even said, they're like, well, he was in the room. I was like, so what? There's no way. And here's what I said. If Doug Peterson did not make the call on Ryan Nielsen, and Trent Baalke was the guy who made that call, Doug Peterson should have resigned that day. Should have resigned that day. because that's not how it works. So it didn't work that way. And again, if it did work that way, for what he's saying about the coaching staff, Shad Khan would have put more probably on Baalke, right? And he wouldn't be around because he's involved in that decision making. So I thought that got dispelled. I don't think we got enough dispelled because there's so much that gets talked about, and they can't do it to everything. I get it. They can't answer every rumor that's going on and everything else. But then there's the Baalke part, right? And what everybody wanted to do, and this is really where you weren't going to hear the answer you wanted to hear, because the only answer you could have heard out of that is like, Baalke's retiring at some point. Now, there's a door open in all of this, which we'll get to, not right now, but we'll get to, about, hey, is Baalke definitely here in 2025? Is he here after this process? There's a door open, as I did mention yesterday, because of the statement I thought opened that door. But even Shad cracked that door open yesterday. But it doesn't sound like that's what he's thinking right now. I mean, he's retained to be the GM at the moment and help with the search. And I don't think there's anything more adamant than that. So we'll get to that side of it. But how about, this is the one that gets people, right? Because you say, why do you keep the GM in place? And body of work is what is initially said.
Right.
And this is where it's really hard to defend Shad. This is where it's hard to defend the organization. This is where it's hard to defend Baalke. Like, the body of work does not say that. The body of work says losing record by like a lot as a GM in Jacksonville. The body of work says, okay, some good finds, but overall, a lot of question marks. The body of work says bad free agent class this year when you spent some of the owner's money. The body of work says this will be the 6th head coach for this man as a general manager in the National Football League. 6th. I'm not talking about a 30-year run here. The body of work continues to me to scream that this guy's body of work only looks good to Shad Khan. Because nobody in the National Football League would have Trent Baalke as the GM of their football team. It's the number one thing I get bothered by. Why do the Jacksonville Jaguars have a guy in place in a premium position that the rest of the league wouldn't even think about? I don't get it. And it's not the first time. I've said this a million times. It started with Tom Coughlin as the EVP, and we all due respect to Tom, and he did a good job in 2017. And by the way, that position is probably needed. We'll get to that. But it wasn't sustainable. And looking in hindsight, nobody else. Now, there were some people flirting with it, at least to put him in the front office in some spots. But the bottom line is nobody was offering that job. It wasn't like he was coveted to be the EVP anywhere. So why is Tom the guy? Doug Marrone. If he wasn't the head coach at the time of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he would not have been a head coach in the National Football League. Why is he the head coach in Jacksonville? Again, in 2017, this comes up roses. But after that, it doesn't. I'll even say Dave Caldwell. After that stint where it didn't go well and the plan didn't go well overall, I don't think many organizations would have kept Caldwell on. Now, he kind of reduced his role in some respects, but he had an 8-year run, and I don't think many others would have. They would have probably made a change. And Caldwell, by the way, looks pretty good in a lot of these different things relative to what is today. Then you go to Urban Meyer. And while some teams flirted with Urban Meyer, he still was not a head coach in an NFL team until Shad Khan put him there. The only one in the league. And then, at that same cycle, a guy that had been out of the league after failing in San Francisco, brought in to be an assistant under Caldwell in 2020, survives the Urban Meyer, or survives that to get the GM job with Urban Meyer, probably because nobody else wanted to work with Urban Meyer. And then he survives that to work with Doug Peterson. And now he's surviving that to work with the next coach. It is my number one criticism of Shad Khan. Why are people in these positions in Jacksonville, but nobody in the National Football League would have them in those positions in their organization? I don't know. I don't get it. And it's not the first time. And what is proven to be the case is the league is more right than we are in Jacksonville. And at times it looks like, okay, this was looking good, actually, right? Tom Coughlin, Doug Marrone, okay. Those guys did a good job. Dave Caldwell's plan did work after 5 years, not 4. Urban Meyer never worked. Trent Baalke had a nice comeback in 2022 with Doug. It looked, listen, there are some things to say, hey, maybe he's right here. And I've been the guy that said that too. It's like, hey, hat tip, you got it right. We were wrong. We're begging for us to be wrong.
Yeah.
But here we go again. Here we go again. The league is stunned. We're not the only one stunned in Jacksonville. The league is stunned that Trent Baalke is still the guy. And again, this is nothing personal against Trent. I don't understand why in Jacksonville, a place that has not had success, we're trying to do something that the league doesn't do. And we did it again yesterday in Jacksonville, by the way. The league would have fired both men. Not here. Not here. So I don't understand it. Hamby, you can talk on it, and then we'll get to like why he kept them. But this body of work stuff, it was probably the worst answer of the news conference.
Well, no, I think that was the second worst answer of the news conference. I think the first was because when he was asked about clean sweep, we could. That's why 96% of your people on the poll said they didn't feel better. It's because, frankly, I don't think Shad knew what any of the questions were about a clean sweep. He wanted to take it and talk about health and wellness and the doctors and everything when clearly all a clean sweep mean GM and coaching staff, right? Why is there not a clean sweep? Why don't you do them all together? And he took that in all of the areas except he talked about the 85 people who work in the building when all of the question was about Baalke and Waugh, maybe if you want to group him in as well, player personnel, just GM and coaching staff. That's all we were asking about, all anybody was asking about. Instead, we got a long answer about everything else. That's why 96% of the people don't say they didn't feel better. As for the body of work, I think what we understood and what I learned a little bit was that Shad Khan takes so much of the responsibility over the coaching hires and wants to be known almost as the guy who is fully responsible for the coaching hires. And that's the only way you can separate Baalke from the success of the team. Because if Shad takes responsibility for hiring Urban, for hiring Doug, for whoever's next, then he can make the argument that it's his fault. It's the coach's fault, therefore his fault. And Baalke's roster over all of these years has still been good. That it's not, you can't not, Shad would argue you can't tie Baalke to the losing record because the losing record has always been Urban's fault and Doug's fault, which means Shad hired both those people, so it's his responsibility. That's what he would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, listen, he did say they're all in it together, right? I mean, it's collaborative. And I do think the process is way more collaborative than, which by the way, is a good process if it's collaborative. I think that's a better way to go. But he's tried search forums, that hasn't worked, all this other stuff. But I mean, I think if you get away from the angst of it, he's answering questions in there and telling you a little bit about the process. If you just don't look at it in a negative light, everything he says, like the things that he's taking you through are like, what are you talking about? Like, like we do, this is our process, And again, we can obviously criticize the process and how we get to where we get in Jacksonville. We do that. But I think he shed some light on it if you kind of take the I want to throw the computer across the room, mentality away for a second. So I think he's actually giving you some insight about how they do it, whether that's good or bad.
Right.
Again, is obviously beauty in the eye of the beholder, which doesn't hold a lot of beauty right now. But here is his response to why keeping Trent Baalke, and mentions the body of work and then goes on from there.
what, I mean, Trent's hit on some picks, and then there have been some misses there. This last free agent class was mostly a wash. What has he done to give you confidence that this will work moving forward, Shad?
Well, Mark, I think if you look at the body of work, and certainly over the last 5 years, you look at the building blocks of players we're building the team around. You look at our salary cap. You look at the number of draft picks we have now, and also making sure that our key players are, getting paid. All of that has happened, and we haven't mortgaged our future, so to speak. And some of the decision making: do we pay our players or let them, walk, so to speak, and then replace them with draft and improve the players? That's happened in the last 2 drafts. Number 1 receiver and right tackle would be something, Mark, that comes to mind right away. Sure. So, we can get in the granular thing. Overall, I think, it's pretty good.
It's interesting the way he said. I would say this: Dave Caldwell, I think, did this too, and I think Trent overall hasn't put them like in cap hell or has set up the organization. Every time they got to hire a coach, right? Every time they hire a coach, what do we say? It's a good situation.
Yeah,
they got a top pick. Their books are decent. Yeah. I think they're kind of stuck here with this roster a little bit more than they want to be, quite frankly.
Still got money to spend, though.
But they still have money to spend. They have flexibility if you're willing to do things like eat dead money. You've got a young group that you think there's some core players. Now, we can debate that, too. Like, Shad just pointed out paying guys was the right thing. We can argue whether that was the right thing.
Right.
They paid Tyson Campbell a lot of money, and he hasn't done anything. So is that the right thing? Like, it's cool that you paid him and you tried to identify him and you think you've got good talent, but is it the right call, right? We thought it was cool that you paid Eric Armstead, too, until you did what you did with him. And then he did out on the field what he did. So, I think Shad looked at it from a 30,000-foot view, which is interesting to me because he like he said, I don't want to get in the granular stuff. Well, he got in the granular stuff a little bit more so, I think, on the coaching. He was talking about rankings and 20th and 32nd and the scheme and everything else. That got granular because if you look at the 30,000-foot view of Doug Peterson and what he did over 3 years, much like Baalke, you'd be bringing up this stuff where he went to the playoffs and he had the back-to-back winning records for the first time in franchise history, first time in 20 years, like that. So, this is what we thought maybe could happen on Monday.
Right.
That he looks at everything from that view. Well, it seems like he looked at Trent from that view.
But not Doug.
In the explanation, but not really Doug. Now, also, there's a Doug 30,000-foot view that simply says he lost 18 out of the last 23 games. But there's also a 30,000-foot view on Trent Baalke that says he lost 18 out of the last 23 games. So you can spin this any way you want to spin it. The bottom line is nobody was going to be satisfied with that answer. And the body of work isn't good. The body of work is better than it's been in some respects. It's better than 12-36. But it's not by league standards and championship standards where you want it to be. So it seems like settling. And picking a winner, picking a side. There's just no doubt here Shad picked the side of Trent Baalke. Where he could have easily picked the side of what I would say is the organization, picked the side of the shield, picked the side of the fans, maybe picked the side of the building. Which is reset this damn thing. He didn't.
Why is he so afraid of a reset? It feels like that's almost like he's just in the same way that we said he's anti making a move during the season because that's just not his preference. It seems like he's just 100% made it his stance and his preference that he's anti-cleaning house. He wants to try to identify one certain problem, eliminate that, but what if, Shad, there's multiple problems? And he wants to single it out.
I love the way you asked that. Basically, why is Shad so afraid of hitting the reset button? And the reason why it's a great question.
Like, what do you lose?
Well, it's a great question because he's only done it once. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really look at the reset button being hit, he's done it once. You can argue a little bit he did it also in the Urban stuff. But, Trent was already entrenched in the organization, so he really didn't hit the full reset button. He did it after Gene Smith and Mike Mularkey. And that was year one. And then ever since then, he's put stuff in place. We love Dr. Kaplan, by the way. And he got, business we got booming for Dr. Kaplan. Like, it's already, he does like 1 million surgeries a week. He's going to do 1.5 million now.
My hand hit my head when that was talked about.
But, like, Dave Caldwell, I think, helped hire him back in 2013-14, somewhere like that. So you're talking about some of these things that have been in place. And by the way, like, there's no need to change a doctor. I get it. But we've had several regimes that didn't feel like it would be a need to change the doctor. So, but to answer your question, why do I think he's so, I don't know if afraid is the right word, but hesitant to do it, is because I think he strives and is on a mission for continuity. I think in all you have to do, I think he holds what the Patriots did for 2 decades as he walked into the league in high regard, right? They had Kraft, Belichick, Brady, a lot of the same players within their organization. And I don't mean players, I mean important people. I think he really looks at the Pittsburgh Steelers as an organization over time that always has a chance to dance. The Steelers aren't any good. They're not winning the Super Bowl. We don't think. They're not very good right now. I mean, they did win like 10 or 11 games, but they're not that good right now. They're not good, but they're there. Like, they're there. Even in a year where you didn't even know who your quarterback was coming in, they're there. And they're always there. And guess what else they've done? They've had 3 coaches in like 40 plus years. I think the envy of the league sometimes, the envy of Shad, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think he's trying to get there. And I don't think he's necessarily wrong in his mission to try to get there. But I think sometimes you got to be willing to pull it back, reset it to get the next group in, and hopefully they're the ones. Because let's be honest, Trent Baalke ain't the guy for the next 10 years anyway. He's 60 years old. He's not GMing this thing until he's 70. To be honest with you, it's the greatest time to reset even at the GM role. Nobody's really looking for a GM. Who's the Jets? Jets are the only one looking for a GM right now?
Well, guess what? As of 4 minutes ago, the Titans just fired their GM.
So the Titans, wow. They fired Rand Carthen. So now you got 2 GMs.
A new guy going to be picking the number one. Pick number 1?
How about that?
He only lasted 2 years.
And maybe that new GM will have a say whether Callahan stays too. Right. But my point is there's not a lot of GM jobs in the cycle. You could almost get whoever you want.
Right.
This is actually a very good time to do it. So, again, I firmly believe this comes from a good place from Shad. This doesn't come from a flip the bird at the fans. I know you guys hate Baalke, so I'm keeping him. Again, I argued at the beginning of this, if he wanted to keep the fans so engaged and he wanted to keep the fans buying season tickets, he would have fired this guy up 3 weeks ago. I think he's really trying and almost too hard. And sometimes we all do this and whatever, we're trying too hard. Well, he's trying too hard to keep continuity. He's trying way too hard. And I understand you can ruffle things up, but I'm telling you, sometimes it's right to ruffle things up. And he just will not hit that reset button. He won't do it. And I don't get it, but I think I know why. I think he wants that continuity in as much as the building as possible. And I'm going to give you one more part of this. I think he is so scared now of what just transpired with Urban Meyer. He gave the keys to the building to Urban Meyer. It wasn't just the football field. He gave the keys to everything for Urban Meyer. And this was just a few years ago. And man, did that blow up. That set us in a position here in Jacksonville, in some respects, to where we still are in some parts of that building. And yeah, it got the Miller Electric Center built and all this stuff, but I mean, that's how much power Urban Meyer had, and it lasted 13 games. And so you ask me the question, why is he so afraid to reset? And I think continuity, and I think fear of what just happened with Urban Meyer with too much power. is on his mind. And I think he's scarred a little bit by that part of the Urban Meyer thing. And he's like, well, we're not bad on this football side. I mean, look what we've done. Look what we've done. We've done all this on the football side. We're okay, like the scouting, the this. I don't want somebody to come in here and say, I got to go fire all these people just because. Urban was that. Urban was like, you got to go move that desk just because. And he does not want, that's where he was talking about ego and power and everything else in the news conference. He was absolutely referencing Urban Meyer at least, and probably more, but definitely Urban Meyer. All right, 45 minutes to start the show. We might as well take a break. More on this, of course, coming up here on the Brent Austen Show. Austen joins us in a little bit from South Florida as well on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway, or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness, and most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC, we are professional grade.
Another exciting week of basketball for the Ospreys of North Florida, both at home and on the road. The men's basketball team started off the week on Thursday at home with a 115-83 win over Warner. It was a huge night for Ospreys freshman Josh Harris, who dropped 26 on 11 of 14 shooting to go along with his 14 boards in 27 minutes. Then on Saturday, the Ospreys traveled to Statesboro to take on Georgia Southern. UNF found themselves down 17 in the second half, but came storming back to force overtime. Unfortunately, the Ospreys couldn't complete the full comeback as they fall 93-91. Both the men and the women are back at UNF Arena this week as the men take on UNC Greensboro and the women take on UNC Asheville. Both games are on Saturday. And remember, you can find schedules, results, tickets, and more at unfospreys.com.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, save $1,000 or more when you bundle a Connecticut Premier Softener with a Connecticut K5 drinking water system. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
Trent's hit on some picks, and then there have been some misses there. This last free agent class was mostly a wash. What has he done to give you confidence that this will work moving forward, Shad?
Well, Mark, I think if you look at the body of work.
Ah, what the heck just happened there? Were we in a commercial break and we're out?
It ended early.
Oh, that's weird.
Without a button being hit.
I was like, what are we doing? That's odd. All right. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I'll write that down. What reel was that?
That was D.
Huh. How many minutes were we in a commercial break there?
We have 15 seconds left, so we might have to hit a rejoin automatically, but we'll see.
All right. So we just had like 15 seconds left to go in the commercial?
Well, now we have 10, but it was 33 total.
Okay. That's interesting. We'll have to fix that. Didn't see that. We didn't have that problem yesterday, did we?
No, we did not.
All right. Hey, real life trying to figure it out on the fly, folks, all right? I mean, you're a part of the conversation. Listen, you were part of TV Hit yesterday, which I still think was kind of fun. But in hindsight, we watched that back, the TV Hit, and I think we got to figure out a way. Like, I didn't realize this, and there's a lot going through my mind at that time because we were trying that for like the first time, live on TV from here. And I think for the people listening and watching on the show, on the stream, we need to find a way to reroute like CBS 47 back into here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they could see everything. It was a good thing I wasn't picking my nose during like the soundbite part of that hit where I like stopped talking.
Yeah.
Because at the moment I'm not thinking I'm like live.
Right.
I thought everybody was seeing it and hearing it, and it makes sense they weren't.
Right.
We got to figure that out. So hey, we're just having a little bit of a powwow about how to get this even better for you guys live right now here on the show on Brent Austen Show. Hey, did you see the news? Rand Carthen. If you just jumped in, Rand Carthen fired by the Tennessee Titans. Interesting now to see. See, they do just the opposite.
Yeah.
They actually do the opposite. Say, okay, we're going to go to GM. He's probably going to make the decision on the coach. He's also going to be the guy going forward with this number one pick. Whoever that is. He, she. Who knows? And then the Jags do this way. Hey, Trent Baalke, stay in. But this coach is going to have power. And I think that's an important part of this whole conversation, too. The thing that people liked about yesterday's news conference is the door cracked open that Baalke could not be here potentially through this whole thing. And there were
a slim crack.
Well, it was slim, but I think it's bigger than you think. One, it was an okay defense, but not an adamant defense of why he kept him. Two, when asked about the contract, it was, we're not signing a contract extension necessarily. Could have announced that, didn't do that. So he's a bit of a lame duck in that sense, contractually. And three, he was asked about, hey, is the coach are you going to get the best candidates, first of all? And if so, will the coach have a say? And eventually, Shad got to the point of saying, listen, if somebody comes in here and says you're not doing it right, and this isn't going to work, and I respect what they're saying, and, well, I'm listening.
Yeah.
But wasn't that a clear indication, again, another dispel of during the process where they interviewed everybody the last time around? It was a 42-day process. They just about interviewed me for the job. And everybody's like, nobody wants to work with Baalke. Nobody wants to work with Baalke. Nobody wants to work with Baalke. Well, he obviously didn't get that feedback in those meetings.
Right.
Like, we're making stuff up sometimes because, now listen, Austin has on good authority. Some agents don't want to work with Baalke. We have on good authority that some of the stuff around the league doesn't necessarily, they're not big on Baalke. But not being big on Baalke and not taking a job with Baalke are two different things.
Right.
Not getting paid $8 million to do a job at the head coach level and getting that opportunity for a good owner to work for in a good situation is a different story. And I think we confuse those stories. We muddy it up to be like, nobody wants to work with Baalke. I can tell you for a fact yesterday afternoon, league circles were already saying, no chance Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's not coming down to work with Baalke. Ben Johnson's not even going to take an interview. Well, the Jags have requested. We'll see. We'll see. Are they going to request an interview with Ben Johnson just to be turned down by Ben Johnson? I don't think the New York Jets requested an interview with Ben Johnson, did they? Publicly? I don't think so. You know why? Because they don't want that job, it looks like. So they're not going to request it and get turned down by it. Now, maybe, let's see. If Ben Johnson does an interview this week, he says no thanks, then I think there's more credence to the Baalke thing. But I think there's a lot of people thinking and talking and saying, hey, they ain't coming down. We're talking to them. We've heard it. We've heard it for months, quite frankly. Well, if he takes an interview, he's considering on coming down, isn't he? So I criticize the heck out of this move to keep Trent Baalke. I also say in the same breath, it doesn't mean you can't get your guy. I don't know how you feel about it, Hamby. I know how everybody else feels about it. They blanket. Look, Ben Johnson will not be a Jags head coach, Bobby says. Maybe he won't. But there are three top guys. Well, there are really two top offensive guys that people are talking about.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen. Mm-hmm. Aaron Glenn's going to be hot on people's list too. Mike Vrabel's another one. Jags, who knows if they'll go after Vrabel. I guess he's interviewing with Chicago today as well. He interviewed with New York, and everybody anticipates him going to the Patriots.
And some people think Raiders, but...
And the Raiders, and they would make sense. The Jags actually don't make as much sense as a lot of those other teams for Vrabel.
Especially after what we heard yesterday from Shad.
Exactly. So the bottom line is they've now put requests in for the two top offensive candidates, the people that will get energized the most.
Well, Brent, here's what's going to happen. Okay, so say Ben Johnson, because we already know, first of all, off of last year, that Ben Johnson's pretty picky, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so here's probably the narrative of how it's going to spin if in a couple of weeks or however long this takes that Ben Johnson is not the next coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Regardless of what his reasoning was, everybody's going to say it was just because of Baalke.
Absolutely.
When in reality, he could have a bunch of different factors. We would all say, I think Shad laid it out pretty well yesterday. That was one of his better answers. And I think we would all give a firm defense of why Jacksonville is the best position available. It's the best job available right now. Okay. Ben Johnson might not think that. Ben Johnson might have a preference over, it's like, God forbid Ben Johnson have a preference of Caleb Williams over Trevor Lawrence. Like, first of all, if he believes that, then I'll tip my hat. Maybe he's not the guy that we wanted anyway, but now we're just seeing through things. Like, there's a lot more preferences that are involved than just, holy cow, he turned the job down. It was 100% Baalke, and that was the only deciding factor in the whole thing. Like, come on now. Yeah,
listen, the story on Ben Johnson has been really one for months under everybody's kind of, I say everybody, but people have known a little bit, right? And there's obviously some common threads to the Ben Johnson relationships in Detroit, common ties to Jacksonville that I think you kind of know where some of this stuff's coming from, right? And the thought has always been, hey, he's interested. He likes Trevor. That's been going on since at least the Detroit game.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that's also common sense. Like, there would be, if you're a top candidate, would you like Caleb Williams? Maybe, right? I can say that. You like Trevor Lawrence? I think so. I think people still think, hey, I can do something with this guy. And there are some critics of Trevor, but there are also some critics of Caleb. And now you could even throw Drake May in the mix. So that's why I think New England becomes a little bit of a fun job for people too, because Drake May looks like there's some upside to him. So you can do that rather than take a new guy in the draft is the point. Like the Jets situation, who knows? The Saints situation, who knows? Those things are way down the list if you're looking at quarterback. But bottom line is, add up the tea leaves, add up everything else, and there's common thought that there is interest. Doesn't mean, hey, I got the job. You got to go interview. You got to see what it's all about. You got to do all those things. And again, I think Ben Johnson's a little bit different than most people that just say, I need that job. I want that job. He should prove that last year. He's actually said publicly some things. So we'll see. But I would agree with you that if he does go anywhere else, it doesn't mean it was all because of Baalke. It could certainly be part of Baalke, though, because I will tell you in the last couple of days from around the league, we've heard he ain't going to like that. So, but they would not have put a request in, I don't think, to get turned down.
Right.
We'll see. Let's see what happens. Because the only way to make this week worse is to get turned down by Ben Johnson on an interview request.
If that does happen, then what will that tell you?
Then I would say I would give credence to the Baalke thing, at least in his situation.
Right.
But my point is not everybody. Am I telling you that somebody in that cycle last year said, no thanks, I don't want to do that? No, I mean, that might have happened. But I also said if we go back to the 2022 coaching cycle, I said exactly what I think I'm going to say this time around. And I think Shad actually said it yesterday. If a coach wants to come in here that has some weight to him, right, that has some leverage to him, and says, listen, Shad, I love this opportunity. What an opportunity. You got a winner here. And I have respect for what Trent Baalke's done in the league as a football guy. I just don't feel like this is the best marriage for me. Like, this is the best partnership. This is going to get us to where we want to go. I think that is hindering this. Then I think that would have won out. Now, did Eberflus, who was interviewing, did Hackett, who was interviewing, did Peterson, did Jim Caldwell, did those guys that were interviewing have that kind of weight? Maybe not. They didn't have the leverage maybe a Ben Johnson has. So I'm going to say it the same thing. If Ben Johnson comes in here and is like, listen, I love everything about this. And this is not to just crush Trent Baalke. I just feel like that piece we can do better at. And I watched it in Detroit that's important. And I'm a big believer in it. I think Shad's going to do what he said yesterday and be like, okay, we got to rethink this. Now, if Shad doesn't do that and he gets that kind of feedback, that's on him.
Right.
That's on him. But I think he has set the table, and he did the same thing in 2022 where he set the table. He never said, and I thought it was actually a bad thing that he did, he never came out in support of Baalke during that 6-week stretch between Urban, and really it was like 7-week stretch, Urban and hiring. I actually criticized him for it because you let the guy hang out there and just get roasted in Baalke. He absolutely got crushed. I thought he should have come out and said, hey, this is our guy. But my point is, I don't think he ever said, this is my guy, because he was waiting for the feedback on everybody that interviewed.
Right.
And so if you add it all up, like as eye-popping as this is for us, as the questioning was good about, hey, does this hamper the search? That's not in Shad's mind as much because I don't think he got that kind of feedback from the people he was interviewing in 2022. That's the things I'm putting together on this. Now, we've got that answer, right? And the door is open a little bit for a Ben Johnson. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if Liam Cohen has this kind of cachet right now, has this kind of leverage. I think the two guys in this cycle that kind of carry that weight, probably Ben Johnson and Vrabel.
Yeah.
Because Vrabel looks like he's going to have a bunch of opportunities.
Right.
Right now, I think we're the only ones in Jacksonville that have requested even Cohen, not to say he won't get more. But keep in mind, folks, there are only 5 jobs open. There are not the 9 jobs that everybody said. There are only 5 jobs open. So that actually swings a little bit of the pendulum back to the ownership groups in terms of leverage. Because if Liam Cohen wants a job this cycle, he doesn't have as much leverage as he would have had if he had 9 job openings and double the interviews. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think the one guy that really carries the weight here is Ben Johnson. He can do whatever he wants to set this thing up. It's going to be coach-centric if you listen to this response from Shad. And now it won't be Urban Meyer kind of power. He's not doing that again. But he'll definitely have a say. And if he doesn't want Baalke part of it, doesn't feel like that's the best fit, I think there's still potential for a move here in Jacksonville to get away from that. But I think it's going to take an interview or two and a little bit of down the road to figure it out. And so in that sense, Baalke still is very much like, as it was put to me, a custodian of this search, at least for now, until the final result is given. Here's Shad Khan yesterday.
I know you noted that if this head coaching candidate was to say, hey, I think the medical needs to be reevaluated, the health and wellness, if they were to say, I would like to reevaluate the front office and the general manager, what would your response be?
My response would be, how would you improve it? And then if it is credible, you want to do it. Okay. So how does a structure work? I mean, I just want to make sure that this isn't about ego or power or, something more sinister, quite frankly. There have been some of those elements that I've found, in my experience in the NFL. I mean, if it's a legit effort to get better, then everything, should be on the table.
Yeah, that was a series of questions from Mia, and that was good. That was a part right there that, hey, that opens the door, right? Because it was a series of things, a little back and forth about the medical. It got kind of wonky in there, like the whole it was just an interesting exchange that finally led to that. And I think he's open to everything. I think he was in 2022. But I think listen, as much as you can say, hey, that opens the door for it, I think you also must say the door was open in 2022 and nobody opened that door enough to say, we need Baalke out of here. So some of this painting the picture of Baalke in the standard of the league and what it looks like, while some of it I think is true, I think it's been overblown by how group-thinky it has become.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, this is the guy sitting in the room with these people. Now, are they so enamored with the idea of getting a head coaching job that they don't want to say, hey, I don't want this guy in here, right? Well, that's on them then. I almost don't want the guy. I said this all along about Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson's got the Lombardi trophy. If he wants to be the heavy in the organization, he should be the heavy in the organization. He should go to Shad and say, listen, this guy's a problem. And if he was a problem, then shame on Doug for not bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because Doug's seen it. Doug's won it. Doug knows what it looks like. But I think we also know one thing is clear. The Doug-Trent relationship was not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Doug was hanging around the building yesterday and still talking to Trent Baalke. You think if it was bad, they would be like that?
Right.
I can tell you the Coughlin, Marone, Caldwell thing wasn't like that. They weren't having coffee after. So I just, I think we got to be a little careful with some of the stuff. I think that there was, while that press conference was viewed as so bad, I think there were things that came out of there that were clues to what happened in 22 a little bit and where this could go in terms of the cycle, but also keeps the door open for Ben Johnson. Now, the question here is this, and you got to think like Ben Johnson, not like the fans. If Ben Johnson takes the interview, which I believe he will if he was requested, because why wouldn't you? You can at least take the interview, right? If he takes the interview, where does this land? Does he work with Baalke? Or does he kind of pull the heavy card and say, I think we got to go in a different direction?
It's a fantastic question. And it's, part of it is funny just because, the awkwardness at times of the press conference yesterday just made me laugh. I was literally laughing, not because it was truly funny, but obviously Shad in that answer is being asked about Baalke's job, and there was multiple questions, and Baalke's just sitting right there sipping his water, and it was just holy cow. It was just insanely awkward to me and ironically funny, and I think most fans would probably agree with that sentiment.
As you're saying that, I'll just throw something in there. There's always something that struck me about Baalke, okay? And this is, man, Delphonic and others will get on me. I said coming out of that stretch, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The Baalke stuff. It was just amazing. And so I don't think he had earned that, is my point. I think Urban was the stuff out of Urban, it was like, that angst was kind of pushed toward Baalke because Urban was gone.
Right.
And so there's reasons for it, but I don't think it was good. It was a bad look here in Jacksonville, in my opinion, the vitriol that he faced. And you almost feel bad. The guy, I've heard this. He's not a bad guy. But when he was painted like that he's a bad guy. Okay? He's just not a warm and fuzzy guy. He's whole. He's very, I described him today like Belichick. Like Belichick in that Patriots world, he looked like a jerk.
Yeah.
He looked like, now you see him on TV and stuff and you're like, this guy's not bad, right? He's Saban, same way. These are football guys that they I think football, I do football, I sleep football, that's all they do. That's Baalke. But I don't think he's bad of a human. He's painted as a bad guy.
Right.
But I would say this to your point. That dude will take some daggers now And that's not normal. Like, I mean, the amount of daggers that he's taken and almost like, whatever. I don't know what kind of, like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what the like scientific word or the psychological word or whatever that is.
Brent, did you see the chat?
But I like, it doesn't seem to bother him is my point.
Brent, I know you were dialed
and I
in.
know he pays attention to it. I know he sees it. I know he listens. Like, he's seen it.
Did you see the chat, the live chat during the press conference?
I didn't, no. I mean, well, I was told about it, but I didn't actually like go up there and see it. The one on the Jags page?
It was one
on YouTube.
It was spamming. I mean, we were happy yesterday because we think we hit over 1,000 chats yesterday and probably closer to 2,000 by the end. This was almost 1,000. I mean, you literally couldn't scroll fast enough through all of the clown emojis over and over and over again. Before this thing, and it didn't help that it started a few minutes late. Late meaning, I'm sure they were trying to get everybody in order. But it's 2:05. It hadn't started yet. And we have literally probably 1 million clown emojis and Baalke this and Baalke that. So I just can only imagine if he would have seen that at some point. It's not like he hadn't seen it before because 2022 was worse when everybody had the mask.
It was actually worse in 2022.
Right. But I guess that proves the point. It's like, holy cow.
I don't know what that's called. Like, someone give me like a psychological like term for that. But he doesn't seem bothered by it. Like, he just doesn't seem bothered by it. And I'm sure he is, but he doesn't show that he is.
Yeah.
Like, even with us. Like, listen, we haven't said the kindest of things at times about Trent Baalke. And it's not like he sits there and like, well, screw you. Like, he has no like looking back like, screw you guys or this or that. Like, never tries to get a shot in. Like, I mean, he handles himself in a professional manner. I will say that, where I don't know if all of us would.
Right.
I mean, I got called some things yesterday, and I kind of even punched back a little bit.
They didn't think your questions were good enough.
But I kind of enjoy it too. Like, I might have a little bit of him in me, where I kind of like it. But I don't get it to that degree.
No.
And like, there's a human element that we forget about sometimes, and I try not to. All right, like this. Some of this is not his fault in the sense that I don't understand why Shad keeps keeping him to put him through this stuff. I'm like, Shad, will you please let him go? Because being fired would be easier than keeping the job. This poor family. It's amazing. And hey, one other note to the Jags, and I love the guys down there. I wouldn't put that on YouTube.
Hey,
like YouTube,
close the chat.
YouTube keeps the chat going. You can see it at least on Twitter. If you just put it on Twitter, doesn't it kind of go away? Like, you can't see it as easily. I mean, I would not advise to put the YouTube. I mean,
guys know
I guess you can't pick your spots, but I'm not sure I would have put it on YouTube. Like, even on Facebook, you've got to scroll through them. So, like, I actually landed on the thing, and there were like 5 million messages, and they were very much the same, but you had to scroll through them. I was like, I'm not doing this. But on YouTube, you just see them coming like in real time, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? I heard like it was just clown emoji after clown emoji, clown emoji, clown emoji.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's one button to turn off the live chat. Just have the press conference on YouTube with no live chat.
I didn't know. So you can do that?
Yes.
Listen, those guys do a great job down there. They don't need me to advise. And maybe that's part of the, I've been pushing for transparency, so you got to take the good with the bad. So I actually tip my cap for, letting that be part of it.
Back to the original question.
Yeah, what was that? What were we talking about?
It was with Ben Johnson and Baalke. I don't know.
Well, no, the question was this. Do you think, so where do we land? And we're going to get Austen on here in a minute. We can ask this question. Let's just, by the way, Mike Vrabel also now on the list, according to Adam Schefter. So all the top guys are been requested. Let's see how they respond. But again, I think this is far-fetched for teams and organizations to put it out there that we're going to request you. And even the idea that they would say no makes you look bad. Like, I don't remember we've been doing this a long time in Jacksonville. We do this quite often. I don't remember that being the case. Now, somebody else will probably remember. You guys have such good memories. Or another team. Do you remember another team like making a request and somebody saying no? But the point I was asking is, do you think he'll come in here if he took the job? Will he just say no? I'm not working with Baalke, or do you be like, no, I've got the power in this, so it's okay that I'm working with a GM that's okay with that, because that's the other part of it. If you're going to be a power centric coach, you're going to have more of the power in the structure. But you got to find the GM that's okay with that. This is a guy that's okay with that. And should be, because he's probably okay that he's got a job. So that actually makes him maybe easier to work with. And he's just trying to be a steward of the organization, help you out, and do the right things to do that. Not easy to find in an egomania-driven league. That if I want my fingerprints on it, I want to do it my way.
Right.
Even as the GM. So keep in mind of that. We'll take a break. Come back. Brent Austen Show on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. This was as of yesterday. Has it changed at all? I don't think so. And again, I think it's worth repeating.
Is Pierce safe?
Well, he was as of now.
Okay.
This was as of yesterday, and he still is as of now. But I think worth repeating here, guys, there's only 5 job openings in the National Football League. And there are only 2 GM jobs open. So, this same conversation that we have about the GM here in Jacksonville, they got a GM in New England, and they got a GM already in Chicago. Ben Johnson's got to be willing to work with those guys, too. We'll be back. Austin joins us next. It's the place we party in football season with Jaguars All Access. Welcome to Spring Sports Brewery, everybody. Say hello to our guest tonight. That is Trevor Lawrence. You can bring your party or event to Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield any day and any time. Rehearsal dinners, corporate events, birthdays. Here at Strings, you can enjoy the inside area and the outside area. Good for any weather, good for any occasion. Watch the games, play the games, shoot some hoops. Beer? Yeah, they have that. Plenty of choices. And sure, this is a brewery, but Strings is also a restaurant, and the food is fantastic. A full menu made from scratch meals. And if you need String Sports Brewery to help with a party at your place, they cater too. Family, beer, food, sports. Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield.
'24 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
They sit in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242. You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing. Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, save 10% off a new Rinnai tankless water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
Here on Spring Sports Media Day on Action Sports Jacks.
It's an opportunity, an education beyond the classroom and the sports arena. life skills, testing skills, social skills. It's called High School 912, a program focused on maximizing the growth of students in academics, sports, and life. And here's your chance to get involved. If you're a local business, or if you just want to make a donation to help support programs like ACT and SAT boot camps, career days, Leadership Academy, Financial Literacy Academy, and so much more.
Another Nice High School Panther, Jack Cole.
High School 912 supports and hosts high school sporting events and several media days throughout the year. For more information on how you can get involved, visit jackshighschool912.com.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Hey, congratulations to Trevor and Marissa Lawrence as their new baby girl over the weekend. Happened Saturday morning, and everybody looks happy and healthy and on their way home. So Trevor has had a busy month or so with shoulder surgery and now their first child. So that's awesome stuff. Good for them as they head into 2025. And listen, really wanted to hear from Trevor Lawrence yesterday. And the plan was to hear from Trevor Lawrence from everything I can tell. But because of obviously the baby, that changed. So there were two things that we did not, two big players, two big players, two big voices that matter that we haven't heard from. And hopefully we will soon enough. But Josh Hines-Allen, who we heard from most of the year because of some personal reasons as well. And then Trevor Lawrence. And so I think, I don't know when the next time we'll hear from those guys. I really don't. But I hope it's sooner than later because I always say this about Trevor specifically. He's a calming voice for the organization. And this is an organization that needs that. I would also say this. This organization, this next coach, he's got to do a better job here. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not a big, all of a sudden we've got into this, and I found myself doing this again. I actually started to write a tweet like Sunday night. And I'll be just transparent as possible and completely honest with you. Where I was like, I thought Doug did a pretty good job in that news conference Sunday.
Right.
Listen, there's been some stuff. I feel like I'm at the center of this at times, which I'm not super comfortable with. And I'm the guy asking questions again because we don't have a lot of media there, like a freaking pool reporter for Jacksonville, it feels like, which is not, it's just the nature of our business now and stuff and whatever. I got my own thoughts on that, but that's different. But I thought Doug handled that news conference very well. I don't think he's handled them all well, but very critical of that. And that's not just some of me questions. That's other people's questions. That's other stuff. That's tone. That's body language. But I thought he did. And so my point in saying that is I almost tweeted that. And I was like, what are we doing? How have we gotten to the point where we're grading every news conference? Which is actually what we did on the show today a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I guess we do that to some degree, but does it feel like to you? Does it feel like to you guys like we are really grading news conferences? And we got to the point during the season with Doug where we really were doing that. I mean, Austin and I were doing that on the show. I mean, we were at times playing the news conference and reacting to it live.
Right.
That's odd to me. But that's where we got. That's where we got this season. That's what happened at times this season. That was part of what went wrong, quite frankly, with Doug Peterson as the head coach, which stuns me because I think Doug can be pretty good on this thing. But my point in all of it is the Jags need to do better on this. And let's be honest, Shad, on a football level, I don't think he's ever going to talk the football that you want him to talk. And that's why he doesn't talk a lot of football. So he's not the guy that's going to be the voice of the football team, and he doesn't want to be. Trent Baalke hardly talks, and when he does, it's very matter of fact. I don't know how to characterize it. I mean, I guess you can in some ways say robotic. It's just very football. It's like what I said about Belichick and Saban. It's very, I'm not giving you much. Doug did not do a great job of being transparent and therefore talking to the fans during a difficult time. I thought he could have done a better job of that. I just don't think he did do a good job of that. I continuously say for the last few years, even under Urban Meyer, that Trevor Lawrence is very good at this. Very good. If you want a guy that understands this town, this city, this franchise, its fans, the feel, the pulse, what to say, how to almost address you at times, he's great. He's terrific. And Austin gets tired of me saying that, but he's really good at that part. But honestly, the players have been the best part of that. Urban was awful. He was terrible.
Alex Clancis? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Alex Clancis. Yeah.
You never heard of Aaron Donald?
Adam Gotsis? Still don't know Mike Vrabel, apparently.
Still don't know Mike Vrabel. So anyway, my point is, the next guy, Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Aaron Glenn, Mike Vrabel, these are the guys that are now requested. Vrabel has now been requested, reportedly. They've got to do a good job on this. It's an important part. You get criticized for every word you say. In Jacksonville especially. In New York, you get criticized for different reasons, but in New York, you also can criticize the Mets coach, the Yankees coach, the Rangers coach, the Islanders coach, the Knicks coach, the Nets coach. You're talking national guys all the time. It's a national market. Here we're talking about this football team a lot. And what you say in front of this matters. And the next guy coming in here should understand that, needs to understand that, needs to. Doug did himself a disservice on this. Doug did not help himself here. And by the way, he could. He's way better at it than it came off. It was the biggest shocker to me this year is how he held himself and what he said sometimes in news conferences. And he really hurt himself. He hurt himself with the fans. The fans turned on Doug not just for the losses. They turned on him for how it sounded and how it looked in news conferences. And I would never have predicted that. It became a mistake. And the next guy coming in here has to know that you're talking and people are listening. And your message is important. And talking to the fans is important. And knowing the pulse is important. And yesterday kind of missed on that too, right? That's why people are so critical of it. You can't always give the fans exactly what they want. I said this yesterday. I continue to say yesterday's news conference was never going to deliver the way you wanted it to deliver. We don't always deliver the way you want us to deliver because we don't always say exactly what you want us to say. But there's still, from those guys' standpoint, from that organization's standpoint, from the head coach standpoint, or the GM, or the people in charge standpoint, there's a time and place to know when you should be talking to them. To you, to the fans, to the people here that are so invested. And by the way, if you want to know how much invested that this city is and these fans are, well, I can tell you this. I've been doing this for 6 years on the ESPN radio side and on social media and now on this new network, and we just had a record day yesterday. That's how engaged people are. So if this was Detroit right now and you're the number 1 seed and it's flying high, those same kind of people are in tune and engaged. I guarantee you the Jags numbers were incredible yesterday on that news conference. The other radio station in town probably did really good numbers yet. People were locked in. It was the lead on the newscasts. It was the story of the day, and people are locked in. And that happens when people are really pissed or people are really excited. Like, that's when that happens. It is important in Jacksonville to get the messaging right. And this organization, quite frankly, has not done that in a bit. And it's important. All right, so let's go down to South Florida. That's my spiel. And bring in Austen Lane. Sorry, Austin. Had to get through my little monologue there. What's up?
Do what you gotta do. Can you hear me okay? We don't got any zombies or any demons or anything?
Sounds like we might have a gremlin coming in there in a minute or two, but we'll see. How did you hit your sparring partner harder today because for the rest of Jacksonville?
Oh yeah, but dude, I also got punched a lot too, as you can tell by my nose. But it was a blast, man. There's some killers in there. I mean, so this is one of the best gyms in the world, and I think I went against 2 guys that were ranked in the top 10 at heavyweight. So we got 5 solid rounds in. It's always a blessing to kind of get just thrown right in the fire because it's crazy, man. It's like the first day of school, right? And you're trying to fill each other out, but it's with dire consequences because you punch each other in the face. So, there's kind of like a feeling out process that it's like, all right, am I going to go a little harder and stuff? So that's what I was experiencing today, kind of being the new kid in school. Everyone's kind of looking at you a little bit, but it was amazing, man. I got some great work in. I was not comfortable for 5 rounds, and that's exactly what I needed. So it was a great day to get better today, bro.
That is, I can't get over the fact that your giddiness about getting punched in the nose. Hamby, this guy, I mean, this is what we have. I mean, he
doesn't take enough punishment from the press conferences. He needs more.
He is, I can't think like you, man. I can't get excited. I can't get excited about you getting punched today. You're getting excited about you getting punched today.
Listen, yeah, because I mean, I enjoy doing this, right? So if you can, and it's funny because of all people, Sean Strickland, who, if you're an MMA fan, you know who Sean Strickland is, very outspoken, very brash. But I remember he told us one time in Las Vegas, he's like, if you guys can't come here with a smile on your face every single day, then what are you guys doing? Go do something else, So I always try to approach it like, you know what? I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to take it one day at a time, but I'm going to have a blast. And today, yeah, it was rough. There are some points that sucked. There's some good grapplers in there as well. So I'm on the ground trying to fight for my life and everything, but it's exactly what I needed, Brent. So
I love it. I'm happy,
man.
I like that you're excited about, because here's what I test. Like, this is just the first couple of days down there that you say, hey, I'm in a good spot to get the best out of my next fight. And that's what I kind of sense. And that's pretty good. Hey, let's do this, okay? I'm gonna shut you down for a minute. Just shut it off. Take me full screen, Hamby. We'll shut Austin down. We do have that gremlin. So just shut it down and come back on. We have no idea why that happens. Occasionally that happens, and we can't figure it out why. So I just think if we get out of it and come back in, you'll be okay. There's other big news right now, though, the Jags. And I just got done saying this. And, Hamby, I don't know if you get a chance, how quick you can do that if you're working on Austin. Don't worry about doing this. But this is fantastic. The Jaguars have announced who they have requested. And this is great. This is the first step in transparency. This organization needs more transparency. So this is awesome. Well done. Well done by the Jags. And this is not for, hey, media guy now knows what's going on. This is not selfish. This is for you. This is important for the fan who's so invested, who I just got done talking about for 10 minutes. You're engaged. You're on for the ride. It's important for you to feel like you're in this with the Jags. Yesterday, nobody's in it with the Jags. Now you can be in it with the Jags. You can be along for the ride. And you're not going to know everything. And we're not going to know everything. But this cloak of secrecy hasn't worked either. The cloak of secrecy over the last handful of years has led to bad PR, bad messaging, rumor mill going insane because everybody just makes crap up. This is good. This is good. And so look at the list, Austin, as we get you back in here. The Jags have requested Kellen Moore, Todd Monken, Joe Brady, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Patrick Graham, and Robert Saleh. And so the report I just saw from Schefter on Vrabel apparently isn't true. Or they just haven't added this one to the list yet. So there you go already. Like, that's why this is important. This is good. I'm not telling you that Schefter's wrong. I'm just saying at least there's some clarity here, and then maybe they'll add Vrabel to the list. They just weren't ready to do it when they put this out. I don't know how. I think this came out just moments ago. So, Austin, first of all, do you like this, that they're being transparent? And secondly, what do you think of that list?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. Is the voice better, or we still got a gremlin?
Yeah, we still got a gremlin. But go on, and then we'll fix it in a break.
We'll figure it out. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, there's some quality names here. A little bit of everything. We have the offensive-minded guys. We have the guys that can come in and try to maybe change a culture a little bit. I will be honest. I get Kellen Moore might be a decent name. I'm not sure if he's the right name for Jacksonville, Brent, simply because he's kind of on the younger side. And I think this is, once again, and I know it's so cliche, but we got to mention it. This team needs an overhaul in terms of culture and what it means to be a Jaguar. And I'm not sure if bringing a young upstart former offensive coordinator into a head coach can change that around right away.
So the headlining guy is Ben Johnson, right? So you got him on the board. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you request guys if you think they're going to turn you down, Austin. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that's hard to say, Brent, right? Like, it depends how the interview goes. Right, like, yeah, you want to get the best candidates possible.
Oh, no. I mean, they won't return your request down to be interviewed.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, obviously, correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that's important, though. I mean, now you've got the top guys: Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, the guys everybody wants. If you did like a Vegas poll, right, or odds, Joe Brady, young guy, like these are guys that the fans would love to have in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but at the same time, Brent, I mean, do coaches normally turn down requests? Like, I feel like if you're a coach, you try to take as many interviews as possible, right? You try to keep your options open. You try to learn more about the team, and that can kind of be a competitive advantage if you go against that team one day. So, like, I'm not sure how many coaches are actually going to say, like, nah, I'm not interested in this interview. I just feel like with any job interview, if you're looking for a new job, you probably try to take as many people as possible.
I get it, but there's also a stigma around here that Trent Baalke is going to prohibit some of the top candidates. Now, you still got to hire the guy, understood, but the fact that they even took the interview is at least a step in the right process to see where this thing goes. I think of Ben Johnson, I believe, now I don't want to talk out of turn, but what I've been seeing is that the Jets aren't interviewing Ben Johnson because it sounds like he's basically told them, I'm not really interested in that gig.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, obviously with Jacksonville, there's a lot to like here. You got a quarterback. In New York, it's a little more of the unknown right now. Not to say, like, and listen, I've been adamant about it where I feel like if the right coach can go to the New York Jets, they might be able to turn around in a year because I think they have the talent to do so. Now it's getting the best out of that talent, make sure that talent plays together. And obviously Aaron Rodgers is a big thing as well. But I think the right situation, New York could be in a great spot. But in terms of rebuilding, in terms of resources, yeah, Jacksonville is one of the best landing spots for a head coach.
Hey, good nugget here, by the way, from Real MBB and the Freedom Vikings. Give you guys a shout out. They both said, and thanks for the clarity. I think they're right here. You don't need to request Vrabel. He's not under contract, so you don't have to request him from a team formally. So Schefter saying that Vrabel is a guy that looks like they're going to interview would be added to this list most likely. So I think that's an important note. Good nugget there. I wasn't thinking that way.
But hang on, Brent. But isn't Robert Saleh available too, though? Yeah, he's not on a team.
He might, but he's under contract with the Jets most likely. Still, would that be a reason why? Because they're still paying him. It's like
the Packers paying him too.
Or the Packers. You're right because he had joined them.
LaFleur.
I don't know what. I don't know where that lands, Austin, but it's a good question. It's funny. There's just some things you don't really realize. Somebody was asking me yesterday, like, what about Press Taylor? What about these guys? I think the way this works is that they're under contract still. Like, Shad's going to pay them to leave, right? But because you're under contract, you basically still are a Jag until the new coach that comes in says, I'm not going to keep you. The only other way to do that is to basically release those guys. What I think Shad can do is release them out of the contract and still pay them. But most likely, I think the way this works is that those guys are really on the Jag staff until the next coach determines they're not, because they're under contract here. Or Shad grants a guy like Press Taylor permission to go talk to somebody else, like his brother in Cincinnati or something like that. So there's some nuanced stuff in here, but appreciate that. So you can add Vrabel to the list reportedly. That's what Schefter's saying, and that makes sense. So real quick thought, and we're going to obviously, this is a big part of today, and you jumped in at the right time. Why I think they tipped their hand yesterday at who they want, but it's an interesting blend here, Austin. Offensive guys are the cool, shiny toy, innovative, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, kind of what's worked around the league in many respects, right?
They're in right now. Yes,
they're in. It's the sexy thing. Yes. Then there's the culture builder, which usually comes from the defensive side of the ball. Robert Saleh, right? Mike Vrabel. Then you get an Aaron Glenn, who's a big name here. And, and by the way, I think people, out of all the defensive guys that I just mentioned, you look at Saleh and Vrabel more as culture builders. I actually think Glenn, because he's on that side of the ball, comes in as a culture builder, but he also is pretty dynamic on defense. Like, look what he did the other night to the Vikings without a bunch of his players playing. And so people are like, man, what he dials up seems to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Glenn was a guy we talked about a lot. I mean, this was, I forgot.
Last cycle.
It was the last cycle as a coordinator, not as a head coach. I remember I wanted him as a coordinator. And what you have to go off of with Aaron Glenn is just kind of the mentality that he brings to coaching. He's definitely kind of an old school type of dude, but players love playing for him because I think it's old school built in respect, right? And we talk about this all the time. It's almost a Joe Cullen effect, right? Where you can be kind of more that brash, that in-your-face type coach as long as it's genuine. And I think Aaron Glenn is genuine. Now, how does it go building a culture for the first time as a head coach? I mean, that's a giant question mark. We have Mike Vrabel, we have Robert Saleh, who have maybe done it before. Now, Robert Saleh obviously didn't go his way towards the end because of Aaron Rodgers and everything. And, Mike Vrabel, say what you want about that situation, but I don't think he had the horses to really compete to make a playoff run. So, I think the question needs to be warranted of, all right, if you want to bring a defensive guy in, more power to you, change that culture around, but do you run the risk of being a first-time defensive guy?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. One other thing, Patrick Graham here. You're probably like, well, who's Patrick Graham? Patrick Graham, defensive coordinator currently of the Las Vegas Raiders. And by the way, has done a pretty good job with that defense. They've been a bad team, but their defense has done a pretty good job. Also was a defensive coordinator a couple years back, like now a handful of years ago in Miami, and has a lot of Patriots ties, too, to the Bill Belichick era. So, this, I really believe, and I think we believe, Shad Khan and the Khan family has an affinity for the Patriots organization. I think a lot of people around the league do for what they did for 2 decades. And so, interestingly enough, there is a Patriot tie to this, not currently, but worked quite a long time, I think, with the Patriots. I'm trying to look at his resume here. You go back to... looks like 2009 to about 2015 or so. So a long run there in the Patriots organization. All right, let's do this. Take a time out way late because we always are. And more with Austen Lane down in South Florida, who likes getting punched in the face for a living. More with me, who likes wearing makeup for a living. And Brent Austen Show, Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network. Why we think Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Joe Brady, those three in particular, maybe even a Kellen Moore, top the list for Shad Khan, why he tipped his hand in that regard, and why it would make sense even before the news conference to me. I had already planned this conversation, and then Shad did that, and I was like, okay, now he's really got me thinking a certain way. There's a roadmap here on what they've hired and what they haven't hired. That story next. If you need a quality play this football season at your home, call That One Painter First Coast. Locally owned and operated, experienced employees, no builder-grade materials. And there's more, and for that, we throw it to Noah Schlicksup. That One Painter First Coast can apparently help your kicking game, too.
Well, after my failure on skinny sticks last year on Creekside game day, I've spent a lot of time out here at Creekside practicing my kicks. There's only one issue. How is that even possible? The good news is I know exactly who can help. That One Painter can handle all your painting needs, from field goal posts to cabinets to stucco. They got you covered. Though they may not be able to help with my kicking, they can certainly help with the posts. Call That One Painter First Coast today for all your painting needs at 904-495-1373.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Burgers or breakfast, you can get it all at Whataburger. Try something new on the menu or an all-time favorite like the Whataburger Patty Melt.
And now you can have breakfast here at Whataburger 12 hours a day, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. Menu items like the bacon taquito, sausage taquito, honey butter chicken biscuit. Whether you work the late night shift, just want a snack early in the morning to get your day started, or a little pick-me-up late in the morning, 12 hours a day, breakfast served, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m.
A dozen locations in Jacksonville. You can order pickup or delivery and download the Whataburger app. New rewards members get free Whataburger items when placing their first online order. Just download the app. And for us coffee drinkers, Whataburger has all new hot coffee and iced coffee too. Satisfy that coffee craving at Whataburger 24/7, and it comes in a variety of flavors. Burgers, breakfast, coffee, and so much more. Whataburger, just like you like it.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jags Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Oh, the good times. I still always wonder, and I don't know if we ever asked this, what's he pointing to his neck for? You know that? There's something, I don't think we ever asked. Maybe we did. Maybe I missed that. Like, I don't know what that was. I was trying to think from like a wrestling standpoint or a sports standpoint. Like, I was always thinking, like, got to step on their neck, right? Maybe there's a little something like that was said, or a little bit of a bulletin board message, or, you know, I'm not always good at this stuff, Austen. Am I missing something there? Like, why is he pointing to his neck?
Honestly, man, as someone who follows all the celebrations very closely, Brent, or like, you know, the trends that my son puts me on, I'm not sure about this one right here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Somebody's got to know that. Maybe we never asked that. It's a good piece of video. It's one of the best pieces of video we have.
When that was the last. When was that? The last home game?
Well, no, that was the 2022 playoff game over the Chargers. That video is from the Chargers win. Yeah. I guess I should have said that.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, the list is out. The interview request list is out. Kellen Moore, Todd Monken, Joe Brady, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Patrick Graham, Robert Saleh, reportedly as well as Mike Vrabel, where as the smart folks here on social media have told me, you don't need to request Mike Vrabel. He's not with a team, so well done. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, as we know. This will be a pretty lengthy list. It's a pretty lengthy request. Usually we'll dwindle it down to 3. I don't know if we always think that's the way it happens or it's actually the way it happens for Shad Khan, because I think there's a lot of we think, but we don't know often. And it looks like we're about to get a little bit more transparency in the process. Well done, Jags. I think that's important. And by the way, let's just talk PR for a minute. After yesterday, good thing to flip this conversation toward the next thing. So that also probably a smart move. Brent Martineau, Austen Lane. And Austen, didn't get a chance to ask you this. Overall, I mean, we talked about the news conference here for the first hour and change of the show. A lot of different things. Doug Peterson and his vanilla scheme that was called out by Shad Khan. The body of work for keeping Trent Baalke. The door is open, though, for a coach, one of these guys, to come in and say, listen, I respect Trent, but I think we could do better with somebody else. The door is cracked open for that. What was your takeaway from that half-hour news conference? Some of the obvious stuff, but maybe was there anything else hidden in there that you took away?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, have we exercised the demons, Brent? We all good with the mic?
Yeah, sounds good.
Fantastic. All right, cool. So what did I take away from it? Brent, when I came on the show, I heard you talking about how more than any, I think, year that we've been doing the show together, we critique the press conferences, right? We critiqued Doug Peterson. And to me, that wasn't by accident, because when you're not reaching expectations, it's on you as a coach to kind of purvey what's going on, what the plan is, and to try to put people at peace a little bit, right? So that's why I think we were so in-depth and it was so intricate this year of us breaking down word for word what Doug Peterson was saying, because they were not achieving expectations. They were underachieving, and we needed explanations of why that was happening. Yesterday was an opportunity for, I think, Shad Khan and Trent Baalke to at least try to extinguish some of the flames that's been rising. And I get, no matter what you said yesterday, not everyone was going to be happy, right? Because people already have the preconceived notion of, okay, well, you made the wrong decision. You're keeping the GM. That should have never happened. So people already went into that press conference a little frustrated, a little like, well, it doesn't matter what you say. We're not going to believe you. But I thought that you had the opportunity to show the clear vision, to share why exactly Trent Baalke was going to be retained and what the plan was going forward. And what I took away from it was that we have great team doctors, which, no kidding, I know who they are. They're great. And it was what Shad Khan was saying was essentially what Trent Baalke, I think, told him to say. Shad Khan, listen, and I understand, like, I'm sure he's starting to learn the game of football, right? He's been around this thing for a while now, so he understands a lot. But to have the verbiage, the narrative of, yeah, it's pretty predictable from Doug Peterson on offense. We were pretty predictable on defense. That wasn't Shad Khan saying that. That was somebody that got into Shad Khan's ear that told him to say that. More than likely, Trent Baalke. So now we're going to make, Doug Peterson the scapegoat, which, okay, that's fine. There's plenty of blame to go around, and a lot of it does fall on Doug Peterson. Don't get me wrong. But I thought the press conference yesterday, it didn't put me at ease whatsoever. It almost made me feel worse than going into the situation, because at the end of the day, I watched two guys in front of everyone answer questions, and I'm like, these are the guys. These are the guys right now that the franchise is in their hands. And based of what I've seen the past how many years, based of what I heard yesterday in terms of audio, in terms of the video, I'm not confident right now, Brent. I'm really not. Now, that can all be turned around. Maybe Ben Johnson comes here and all of a sudden we forget all about that press conference, right? And we move on, and now it's back to being excited again. But where I sit right now, yeah, I'm not really excited to see what the future is going to hold.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way. And I think this is, you will shift. Everybody will shift once the coaching stuff goes, because you do get a little enamored and energized with a new coach. It just happens. Coach and quarterback do that. And so this will happen, especially if you get the right guy. Now, if it feels like you whiff on Ben Johnson and you whiff on Liam Cohen and you whiff on a Joe Brady, and then you're kind of settling somewhere in there, I'm not sure everybody will like it. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of different things going on. I'm going to just I respect what you said, and I understand a lot of people are also saying this to me when I have this conversation about, yes, Shad Khan didn't come up with the predictable stuff. But I also don't disagree. I also don't agree that it was just Trent Baalke. I think Shad Khan also let everybody into his world a little bit yesterday, that he talks to a lot of different people and the players more than you think. Right? And I think about the Trevor Lawrences of the world, the people that he paid. I think he does talk to these players more often than people think. And I think that same kind of sentiment about Doug and his offense and Nielsen and his defense could come from certainly Trent Baalke, could also come from his son Tony Khan, but also come from league circles and what other people are saying and feed to a Tony Khan or some other folks. Could come from maybe even some coaches, staff, or football people or pro personnel people in the building, not named Trent Baalke, but could also come from the players themselves. I felt like when I heard the players talk yesterday in the locker room, they have ultimate respect for Doug, being in the foxhole with Doug, but they also feel like there was something missing with Doug and with this staff, and they weren't used in the best way possible. And I think as you go backwards a little bit, you get into that maybe October or November time when everybody's like, Doug's throwing Trevor under the bus, or Trevor's pissed off at Doug. I don't think that actually was true, but I also believe there certainly could have been a little disconnect. Like we could be doing better. We could be doing more. We could be in a better position. And I say this all the time. You can like your boss at work and still say, I think we could do more. Like you can do those two things. Those are possible. Austin, you can go fight down there, and your guy in the corner, you can be like, I love you. I trust you. I'm with you. But couldn't we do this a little bit better? You can have those kind of conversations. So I actually believe, and might be naive in doing so, but I actually think some of the feedback Shad got also came from the players, people like Trevor Lawrence. That's just a thought from me. I don't think it's only Trent Baalke is my point.
No, and I think that's fair, right? I mean, Shad Khan has said that he's confided in a lot of players in that locker room. And I remember back when, I was playing and Shad Khan was his first year, like he picked a lot of players' brains. So I don't think you're wrong there. Maybe some of that did come from Trevor. Maybe some of that did come from other players, because he said offense and defense, right? So maybe it came from Josh Hines Allen a little bit. That's a possibility. But once again, I just think the biggest takeaway for me yesterday was you had a chance to at least explain yourself a little bit and kind of purvey what the vision's going to be going forward. And I just felt like it was a missed opportunity, because I don't think, and with all due respect to Shad Khan, and listen, Dr. Kaplan is a great dude. I mean, he is one of the best in the game. I know firsthand. But like what the team doctors has to do with the next head coach, with retaining Trent Baalke, I have no idea.
Yeah, listen, there were a lot of things to dissect from that news conference, a lot of things that didn't go the way probably they had hoped or planned as well. I did think there were some things and insight that came out that you got to dig through a little bit. If you go back and listen and read it, almost better to read it than watch it. Okay, so read the transcript. And I think there's some things in there that we've talked about over the last hour and a half a little bit too, so I'm not going to reiterate much, but I think that we'll take with us through this next process. And one of the big things, I've been saying this for the last couple hours, so I might as well get to it as we hit the noon hour here on the Brent Austen Show, is Austin, there's no doubt in my mind they're going for young play caller. They're going young, innovative play caller. And on this interview request list, you can see some. Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, Liam Cohen. I think Kellen Moore probably does fall into this category as well. I'll give you this update from Albert Breer, which I just saw, but I guess it's been out for a couple of hours. The Lions have given Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn a window from Thursday afternoon through Saturday to do head coaching interviews per sources. All those by rule have to be virtual. Johnson will be selective, may only interview with Chicago and New England, Albert Breer says. But this was before, I think, the news of the request from the Jags even came out. Another thing to note that I'm just seeing on social media a little bit, and we've been told, obviously, Vrabel should be added to this list. They don't have to request him because he's not with a team, and he sat out this year. Steve Lehman, our buddy up in Nashville, they just fired Rand Carthon, the Titans did, and Lehman says about a half hour ago, someone with NFL organizational experience just texted me, the Titans are a laughing stock, and Vrabel is one of the most wanted head coaches in some time. So there's some turmoil up there in the way this thing is going down. And by the way, I thought that was a big part of whether you keep Doug or can you get the guy you want? Because look at the Titans. The Titans said, you know what, this feels stale. If you were in Nashville or if you looked at the Titans situation, you said, you know what, I get why they're going to move on from Vrabel, but you've got to be able to do better. And what you look at their team on the field and you look at Callahan right now and it doesn't feel like they're better. It doesn't feel like they're going to be better. It doesn't feel like they're going in a good direction. It feels like they would have been better off keeping Vrabel. And I think the Jags have to be very careful here. You've got to get an improvement. Doug Peterson has a Lombardi trophy. Doug Peterson knows how to win football games in the league. Doug Peterson did some things wrong and not all right and probably has earned the firing, quite frankly, by NFL standards. But it doesn't mean you're going to get a better guy than Doug Peterson. So that's the task. You've got to be able to do that, Austin. One of these guys better be better than Doug Peterson. We just saw it in Tennessee that it doesn't look like the guy's better than their previous guy.
Yeah, and it's a wild thing, Brent, because like I wish I had like a foolproof blueprint of what I could say of like what they should do next, but I don't, because they've tried everything. They tried to go with like the outside the box guy with Urban Meyer. That didn't work. They tried to go, in my opinion, I think I said this when they hired him, the safest coach ever, has the highest floor and hopefully a high ceiling because he's a Super Bowl champion in Doug Peterson. And that doesn't work out. So I don't even know like what the next step's going to be. Do you go with the NFL trending? Do you go a young up and start offensive coordinator? Do you go with maybe a guy with a safer floor like a Vrabel? Maybe like a Robert Saleh? I don't know. Because like usually with teams, Brent, what they do is, okay, say you fire your coach and maybe he was like an old school defensive coordinator guy. Well, then usually you're going to go with then you're going to go with like the new school guy, the opposite of it, right? Because it's something new. It's something different.
Mm-hmm.
You've tried everything and nothing's worked. I guess what you haven't tried yet is like the young upstart coordinator, but I think that comes with some risk,
Yeah, so I like what you just said there because you led me down the path. And I'm going to tell you, in full transparency, I started thinking about this last week sometime, and as I thought this was going to happen with Peterson, who are they going to get next? And so I do these things like, what's Shad's trend, right? Where has he been? What's he going to do? How is he going to fire these guys? When are he going to fire these guys? Is he going to fire both these guys? And he surprised us all, and he kept Trent Baalke, right? But I got to the point where I'm like, he is definitely going like 95% chance, because Shad always has the variable now. I mean, he always has the variable. But 95% chance he is going young or offensive minded. And I say young. I don't even know what young is anymore. But I feel like younger, offensive guy, first-time head coach, innovative, the Ben Johnsons, the Liam Cohens, right? The Joe Bradys.
Okay.
And here's the reason why I say it. Because you're right. He has tried everything but that, Austin. He hasn't tried that. He has tried everything but that. Let's go back through it. Mike Mularkey, hardcore, tough football guy, run the football, play defense, disciplinarian. We're going to do it this way. I got an identity. This is what we want to be. Okay, well, that was short-lived. Gene Smith, all that stuff. Next guy, up-and-coming, cool thing. People were after Gus Bradley, Legion of Boom defense. Seattle was the hot team at the time, 2013. You go, the younger GM. And when they hired the GM, Dave Caldwell, there was this move toward a younger GM at that time, if you might remember. And so they did. They moved younger GM, first-time GM. They moved the younger defensive coach, first-time head coach. Okay, check that box. Next time around, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work. The quote that always stays with me, Dave Caldwell, he's still in his formative years, meaning he just wasn't really ready for that, right? Wasn't ready for the whole thing. He did a lot of good things. I like this plan. I like this. I like that. We're going to keep him. But we got to go get some more experience. We got to do that. Well, we're going to go get Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin's going to be now the identity of this team. We're going to get Doug Marrone with him, but it's a package deal. It's Tom Coughlin. It's Doug Marrone. You recycle the coach, but really what you did is something different. You put the EVP in place. You now added structure, and you went identity, and you went experience, and you went Super Bowl champs. Ironically, a little side note here, it seems like the guys that have had the shortest leash for Shad Khan have Lombardi trophies. Tom Coughlin and Doug Peterson. That's my side note. Okay, so then you check that box. Okay, we tried something different with the EVP. And many of us feel like, by the way, that was the right idea, probably wrong guy for sustainability at that time, the way the league was changing, right?
Well, but you had the best success with it.
And you had success instantly, but here's the deal. You just don't have sustainability. Sustained success is what Shad has not had. He's actually had two flirts, two dances with success. He just hasn't had sustainable success. And so that wasn't the answer to have sustainable success. We all say this all the time. It's deeper than Tom. It's not necessarily Tom's fault. It was the way he was doing business because it was the old school way of doing business that helped win in 2017, but it put that group on edge, and it wasn't sustainable because the league was changing at the time. The player was getting more power. The player brand was bigger than the game, was bigger than the franchise, was bigger than the jersey. So all this was changing. And they're like, no way, that is not Tom Coughlin, right?
And it's funny because I remember, they have the great season. They go to OTAs after that season. And I remember we're at the Iceman game, Brent, and he mentioned, full participation. And we even said, I'm not sure but it's not whatever. I mean, you guys are still winning, but that's the difference, right? We wanted to critique Doug Peterson every single day because that team was losing. When Tom Coughlin he came out and said he expects everybody to be there, full participation, we just kind of glanced by it because, you're successful. You're winning. So, okay, more power to you. So it was good, and then it wasn't good anymore, obviously. And that was kind of, I feel like, the domino that was pushed over where it's okay, maybe we don't have the locker room like we think they do.
Yeah, you're right. Because again, there was a different player at that point, right? I mean, it was on edge. It was changing. It was a lot going on there. And I mean, they got in trouble with the PA over some of those kind of things. He called out Telvin Smith and Jalen Ramsey. Again, Tom, great football man, should be in the Hall of Fame, is responsible for the best seasons in Jacksonville Jaguars history, is in the pride for a reason. But sustainability-wise, no go. And again, something they tried. So he tried that. Shad's trying all these different things. I don't know how you can hammer Shad for at least not trying these different methods of trying to make things work. So he keeps guys longer, 2020. Then he goes after Urban. And people had been a little bit after Urban. He went hard after Urban. Gave him the keys to the car, the college guy. And honestly, I'll sit here and always say, I'm like, you got Trevor Lawrence, one of the best winners in college football. You got Urban Meyer, one of the best winners in college football history. How does that team is not going to win? Now, we might have just sold our soul with Urban Meyer. Okay, we can deal with that. This team's going to win. Two wins. And the mess.
And that, honestly, that was probably the most excited I've ever seen the Jaguars fan base after a coaching hire. There was a lot of enthusiasm. I get, hindsight's 2020 now. We want to make fun of it. We want to say it was, but man, I remember the tweets. I remember the excitement. I remember the T-shirts when Urban Meyer came to town. We were all intrigued. We were all excited. And obviously it doesn't work out.
He was listening to our show, too. We really liked it. I mean,
friend of the show, Urban Meyer.
I mean, there was so much to like about that. Although polarizing around the league, it was it kind of felt good because it was us. We got this one right. You'll see, right? It's us against you guys. But anyway. We just went through all of it. We went, so younger defensive guy or up-and-coming defensive guy that's kind of cutting edge. GM, same way. Into, okay, go back to Tom Coughlin and Marrone, into Urban Meyer, totally outside the box. Nobody was doing it. And then you get to Doug Peterson, the second go-round coach. Now, Malarkey kind of fit this as well. And I guess in a way, so did Coughlin and Marrone. But Super Bowl winning coach, second go-around guy,
Safest
and
coach they hired,
offensive guy. Yeah, and arguably that resume makes so much sense. So this is just saying what they've tried. So of all those different tries, never tried the offensive hot shot. Never tried the young offensive hot shot. Had a chance during that cycle if they wanted to go after O'Connell, didn't. And quite frankly, at that time, to try to clean up the Urban mess, Doug was the right guy. Doug should get a lot more credit. And tomorrow on the show, we're going to talk a little bit more about Doug and going forward with Trevor and other things. But Doug should get more credit now for fixing the Urban mess and stabilizing things for a bit. Because you can be mad at the last year, but you can't dismiss the first part, right? And so anyway, I think that's why Doug was good for this job at the time. I think we all said it right from the jump. Jim Caldwell, Doug Peterson make a lot of sense here. Well, the only thing, and this was even before yesterday, the only thing Shad Khan has not tried is that young, innovative, hot shot, hot up-and-coming guy that everybody's talking about, that what we would call a shiny new toy, right? And now here it is. Doug, the offensive hot shot? No, Colin. Doug might have been an offensive guy, but he's not an offensive hot shot. And let me tell you why he's not an offensive hot shot. He only got like 2 interviews that cycle. And I remember asking Doug one time, like, Doug, I do not get this. How did you only get like 2 interviews? And he said it. Like, everybody loves that new shiny toy. That hot, shiny toy, right? Like that. And that was his take. He told me on it. So, no, there's a big difference between 55-year-old Doug, who's an offensive-minded guy, and then the 35-year-old guy who's never had a chance to do it, who's innovating things, who's trying to find new ways in the NFL, who relates to today's player just as well as you can. So there's a lot going on. I'm going to say one more thing about this that I think they've tried and that I don't think they'll try this cycle, Austin. They've tried the guy that's been out of the business in the league. Doug was out for a year. Even Trent's been out for a time. Tom Coughlin was out. Marrone hadn't coached for a head coach wise. I don't think they're going that guy.
And Urban, of course.
Oh, and Urban. You're right. So he's tried that on multiple occasions. Like, if you're looking at what you've done, if you're Shad Khan, you're making the board of everything I just said for the last 10 minutes, and it's a bingo card or whatever you want to draw it up as. You are not going to get the guy that's been out of the league because that hasn't worked out for you. So, Mike Vrabel, I think it's a good interview. He ain't coming, in my opinion. And I don't know where Robert Saleh falls, but he felt like he'd been out the whole year to me, even though he wasn't. That may be different, but I would say of Mike Vrabel, I think that hurts Vrabel in this process, and Vrabel's got a lot of opportunities. Vrabel's probably going to New England anyway, but I think it hurts him in Jacksonville, even though we kind of like it, Austin, the idea of a culture builder, that he's been out of that formula has not worked for Shad.
Yeah, first of all, I want to go back to the whole Doug Peterson thing of not being like this young, hot shot innovator. Yeah, he's not young, but look at the coaching tree where he came from. Like, you want to talk about innovators. And I get, we have the Vikings as an example. We have the Rams as an example. But the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, in terms of innovation, in terms of, whether you want to run the ball, whether you want to pass the ball, whether you have injuries and circumnavigating around that, no one's done a better job of innovating than Andy Reid. And keep in mind, Doug Peterson in Kansas City was calling the plays with Andy Reid.
He was.
So when he goes to Philadelphia and he somehow wills a backup quarterback in Nick Foles to win a Super Bowl, yeah, I think that is innovative. I think he should get his flowers for that. And I really think, I don't think Doug Peterson, during the second process of him coming back to the NFL, it wasn't about the offense. It wasn't about the coaching style. I think it was more about how he got along with management in Philly. And I think they butted heads a lot. And Doug wanted to do things a certain way, and the Eagles want to do things a certain way. So a lot of owners, a lot of GMs who are conducting interviews may have got turned off because they saw how it ended in Philly. It didn't end good. Like we say it now, like, yeah, Doug was great in Philly and everything. He won a Super Bowl, get the statue and everything. Yeah, but people forget how it ended, though, with him sitting Jalen Hurts, the team getting all pissed off, and essentially losing the locker room. So I just think teams were turned off by that, not necessarily the X's and O's that Doug Peterson brought to the table. Now, if you want to talk about the innovators in this round, yeah, I think Ben Johnson obviously is top tier. He's a number one, and I agree. Like, if they got him, I'd be very excited. My worry, though, is I think of all the candidates, I think Ben Johnson's the guy that's going to want a clean slate with everybody in that building. That he's going to want to do things his way. He's going to want to bring in his own GM. And Shad Khan has made it abundantly clear that, yeah, he's willing to change things up if it comes down to it, but he's also taking advice from Trent Baalke. So what's to stop Trent Baalke from going, I like Ben Johnson and everything, but I'm not sure if he's right for Jacksonville? Simply because Trent Baalke's going to be in self-preservation mode. Why would you give your ringing endorsement to a coach that may not even want you as a GM? That's not good business. That's not smart. So that's why I get nervous about this whole thing as well, retaining Trent Baalke, because is Trent Baalke going to do the best thing for the Jaguars? Or is Trent Baalke going to do the best for his self-preservation and then the best for the Jaguars?
Very fair point. And I also think you've got to be careful. I mean, first of all, Shad, this is on him to see through that, right? To see through that ego that he talked about, that power that he talked about, even with the guy that's sitting next to him. And he's got to do that. But he doesn't have to be alone in that, because he also, the next part of this conversation is he opened the door for that more infrastructure, right? It seems like to me there are going to be more people involved in this hiring process than has been in the past. More people sitting in the room. I think that's the way I interpret it. And if that's
Jags
the case,
Twitter. Let's go.
Jags Twitter. But I guess who is that, right? It's Shad, it's Tony Khan, it's Trent. Is Ethan Waugh part of that, right? And then as on top, I keep throwing Tony Baselli's name out there because he makes the most sense to be involved in the organization, do the best interests of the organization. So I'll continue to use Baselli's name. Is he part of those? At the very least, if Tony Baselli doesn't get EVP role or whatever else, is he part of the conversation of hiring the next coach? Is he part of the informative part of that? Is he part of the advisory committee, if you will? I would say at this juncture, it would be silly for him not to be, right? Or somebody like him not to be. So my view on yesterday from what he said, and Hamby, do we have that part? Or did we already play that part? About the EVP and the we're lean on the infrastructure. And if we get that in a little bit, we can talk around it before you get to it. But it seems like he's going to beef up the front office from what he said. He almost did it in 2022. They pulled back on that. And from my view and from what I've heard, that had a lot to do with Baalke being like, we're good. And this time, I'm not sure Shad's going to be like, we're good. No, he said it again. We're lean in the front office. Does that mean EVP? I don't know what that means in terms of structure, but it looks like they're going to beef that thing up, which means I think there would be more decision makers in the room as well, Austin, when it comes to whatever goes on here, which would prevent your situation of Baalke being the only guy feeding him information about who they should hire as the general manager. I'm sorry, as the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's the case, Brent. But until... I mean, do you think this will be under wraps? Like, we're not going to hear, is there an EVP? We're not going to hear? Or will they be pretty transparent of how this process is going?
Well, they've been transparent to start. I don't know how transparent you get. I'd have to look around the league and what other people say. I think this is more, hey, here's what's going on, but not here's who's in the room. I don't know. I don't know that. But I also would say I doubt that is the case, because I think what's happening here too, Austin, I'm just going to read what Shad said. This is a coach-centric team. And so I think whether that's an EVP or whatever role that looks like, or a new GM or this GM, I think the head coach coming in here will have a say. So I think it'll be up to Ben Johnson to kind of say that if he thinks, hey, this is what I believe should happen. And then it'll be up to Shad Khan to listen and see if he should take action. But would you be surprised at this point if they're, let's just call it an EVP because we really don't know what other role that says. I've suggested, by the way, you might know I wrote an article on actionnewsjax.com. And in that article, I suggest that the Jags get somebody in the organization more like Chris Spielman. Now, we keep throwing out the EVP role. But I don't
We've had two
necessarily...
presidents in office, Brent, by the way, during this article. Like, we're about to have two presidents in office, but go ahead.
Until, by the way, it's proven completely wrong, I'm going to keep promoting the article. Because I'm right until they're right, quite frankly. Sure. But I don't necessarily think it has to be EVP. Like I have said this to be, the one part about the Baselli side of this is that I don't think you want to put him in a position where you fire him. And so if you go look back at Spielman, in my article, I mentioned this, I kind of clipped out something where he's had a bunch of different roles. They've moved him around because I don't think they want to fire him. Like they don't want to put him in a position of too much power where you can blame him for everything. You want him a part of it. And so I don't know if it actually is EVP or if it's whatever role, just name a role. Like you can make something up. But do you think we'll get that extra person in place in this cycle? And for this conversation, let's just call it executive vice president.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, Brent, right? Because the way you've been doing things hasn't been working. So you got to switch it up a little bit. But I just caution, like, okay, for instance, Tony Baselli. I think he'd be a pretty damn good EVP. I think he knows what it means to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. I think he's been in the community. I think he can be the bridge guy between a fan base, a city, and a team. I think that would be a pretty solid pick for an EVP. My worry, though, is how many people do you bring into this mix? How many cooks are going to be in the kitchen? Because, if you watch what happened with Atlanta through the whole process, it seemed like they had 20 people that were like making decisions, right? Because there was rumors of Bill Belichick becoming an Atlanta Falcon. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like Survivor, where half of them were like, no, Bill's not coming here. And half of them's like, yeah, Bill's going to come here. And then they go away from Bill Belichick. And then the whole Michael Penix thing divided the building. I don't want that. I don't need all the cooks in the kitchen. What I do need is somebody who knows what it means to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. I don't need somebody from a winning organization like the Steelers to come over and say, this is what you know, because every team is different. And obviously the way you've been doing it so far has not been working. So whether it's an EVP, whether it's a couple EVPs, it's got to be guys that have the best interest for the team and not about self-preservation, which I feel like Trent Baalke is about right now. So I think it comes down to, Brent, of, how much of the pie do you give each person? Let's say it's Tony Baselli. If I'm Shad Khan, how much am I listening to Trent Baalke? How much am I listening to Tony Baselli? And who kind of has the final jurisdiction? Because I would think that it's Trent Baalke, but maybe I'm wrong with that. We'll see.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, you're right. And again, Austin, I think it's important. You could have an EVP in place. You could have a GM in place, which is Trent Baalke, and you could have a head coach in place. And it sounds like, if you listen to Shad in his news conference, he's going to have the heaviest say. He's reporting the Shad as well. And it sounds like he wants to be more coach-centric. I think there's a line being drawn, though. Okay, we're not going to get him as coach-centric as Urban was, right? We're not going to give him that kind of power. We need infrastructure here to prevent against that. So, again, you got to, if you read, and he also continues to point out, I'm going to weed out power-hungry people. I don't want power-hungry people. I don't want ego-driven, right? This can't be looked at that way. So you've got to be part of the team. And it's obvious that we look at Trent on the outside as a survivor, as a guy playing the political game and moving the cards to survive in the league. But it's pretty obvious that Shad doesn't look at him that way. Shad looks at him as a way that he is a steward for the organization, that he is okay with somebody else being the head coach-centric team, the guy that can be a culture builder, all those things. What is right, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say Shad's right all the time, given the track record. And I think sometimes we have this groupthink on the outside and we run with it, but we really don't know. And he has to create that situation. That's why I think the EVP role is valuable, to get another voice in there, to break some of that mud up potentially. And then being transparent about it is also not a bad thing. So the quote he said is this. It's a very short one. Well, it's going to be the right person when asked about an EVP. It's got to be the right person. Frankly, we need to add some people. We're lean, But if you look at the football side, we've added people. We've changed some people. And if we find the right person, definitely. So it was kind of all over the place. But I think the highlight there was we're lean. And we need to add some people. And Shad was this close to doing it the last cycle, from everything we understand. And I think he's going to do it this time. I think you're going to see another person in that mix in some capacity that is a decision maker, a defender, Austen, of the organization, a lookout for Shad and the fans and everybody else, a message giver of, hey, yo, go down the hall and be like, Doug, you got to get out there and do this, right? Head coach, you got to go do this. Trent Baalke, get out there. Like, it's important in Jacksonville. Guy like Baselli, that kind of role, he can help do that. And I think they really, really need that in this organization. Let's take a time out. Brent Austen Show. Oh, go ahead. You want to go finish up?
Well,
you got a thought?
Yeah. I was going to say, Brent, and maybe this, it's been so long now since I've read the article, I'm going to have to reread it again. And that's on actionnewsjacks.com? It's on actionnewsjacks.com?
Actionnewsjacks.com, yeah.
Severed head story still in there as well or not?
I don't know that.
Get a 2-for-1?
I don't think so.
Bring it back, man. Come on. Bring it back. But no, what I wanted to say is that I think you also need somebody who's going to tell Shad Khan how it is. I think the problem sometimes that when you're in power and you have all the power and you have all the control and everything is that you surround yourself with yes men who tell you what you want to hear, not what the truth is going to be. Right? And I think that EVP's role more than anything, he's got to tell it like it is. He's got to say, hey, Shad, what's happened the past whatever years now that you've been here, we can't do it, man. It's unacceptable. We're not doing a good job right now. We got to make a change, right? So I hope whoever it's going to be, whether it's Baselli, whether it's somebody that understands the game of football, obviously, is going to shoot it to him straight and not be another guy that's just going to be like, yeah, everything's going like, no, because right now it's not good. Okay, it's not good till it is, and guess what? It's not good right now, and someone's got to purvey that fact to Shad Khan. You just can't tell Shad Khan what he wants to hear, right? That's one of the things about being a CEO, that you surround yourself with a bunch of people that are like-minded, that tell you what you want to hear, and you be successful. And you know what? At the end of the day, in terms of, I'm sure the pocketbook, I'm sure the Jaguars are still generating a lot of money. But someone's got to sit him down and say, this is not okay. And we got to make some major changes. And hopefully that person, whether it's the EVP, whatever role you want to call it, can do that.
I think you bring up a really good point that's worth reiterating. The problem with the Jacksonville Jaguars is not strictly the head coach and the GM. Mm-hmm. It's not the acquisition of players or the X's and O's. The problems don't stop there. The problems we've talked about for months continue with messaging and relationships and conversation like that with Shad and communication, those kind of things. And toxicity that just naturally exists in an NFL organization. And you're not going to rid everything, but you can do better in spots. The Jags did better today. They were transparent. They put out their request list. That's an excellent step. It's a small thing. It's not going to help you get to 10-7. It's a small thing, though, that helps everything feel better around the organization. And that's part of it. And by the way, human nature is not to. You said yes, man, and he's a billionaire, right? He's a big head honcho guy. It's intimidating. But human nature, even if that guy isn't intimidating, is to want to be the guy tattling on everybody, right? You don't want to be that guy, but it comes across like that sometimes. The bottom line is they just need somebody to tell the truth in the organization of what they feel. And by the way, Shad has to listen and trust that. Doesn't always have to act on it. But he has to listen and trust that information is in the best interest of him, the organization, the fan base, and everybody else. So that's why they need to set it up that way, the way you just said it, in our opinions. Let's take a break. Brent Austen Show here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 Network. Brian Thomas Jr. Did he save Trent Baalke's job? Really, there's a prevailing thought that he did, but the bottom line is he's on the roster. And it's a damn good thing he is, because he's a heck of a football player and had a nice rookie season.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. the Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness. And most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC. We are professional grade. If you need a quality play this football season at your home, call That One Painter First Coast. Locally owned and operated, experienced employees, no builder-grade materials. And there's more, and for that, we throw it to Noah Schlicksup. That One Painter First Coast can apparently help your kicking game, too.
Well, after my failure on skinny sticks last year on Creekside game day, I've spent a lot of time out here at Creekside practicing my kicks. There's only one issue. How is that even possible? The good news is I know exactly who can help. That One Painter can handle all your painting needs, from field goal posts to cabinets to stucco. They got you covered. Though they may not be able to help with my kicking, they can certainly help with the posts. Call That One Painter First Coast today for all your painting needs at 904-495-1373.
'24 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
Is it in the dying moments?
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season!
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Well, there's a look at the opponents for next year, and they're all straightened out now. So here's the deal. Jags are traveling a bunch. You got London, Who knows if it'll be 2 games? I don't think that's a lock for 2 games. I guess I haven't really asked that, but I think the schedule has to match up for that away game to make sense. So we'll see. So maybe one of those West Coast trips actually could be in London instead, which might save you. But West Coast Raiders, West Coast San Fran, Denver Broncos, Arizona, woof. And then somewhere in there, potentially one of them, London, on the away trips. Meanwhile, for fans, like those are pretty good away trips. Go to San Fran, Vegas, Arizona, Denver, good spots. And then the home games. I mean, again, on paper, I think it looks like a tough schedule because right now everybody looks better than the Jags coming off this year. But at the same time, we know the division is very manageable. And, I mean, look at the middle 3 at home. Seahawks, Carolina, and the Jets. Like, you've got to be able to beat those teams. You've got to be able to beat those teams. And quite frankly, at home, you probably should win 1 or 2 of the top line home games if you're going to be good. The Jags have got to be better at home. Like that is, it's not talked about enough. I feel like we talk about it sometimes, but not enough. They have got to be better at home. Speaking of home, Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network, Brent Austen Show. Austin's not home. He's down in South Florida. Brent Martineau here, Jason Hamby here in the network studios. And we will want to let you know that we've partnered up, of course, with JaxPal, Jacksonville Police Athletic League, and you can get involved, jaxpal.org. Help the kids out. Maybe be a part of the after-school programs as well. You can make a donation, and it's all over Northeast Florida, too. So it's not just in a particular spot. Wherever you live, JaxPal probably near you. Jacksonville Police Athletic League, jaxpal.org. Hamby, I didn't hear what you said.
Well,
don't worry about it.
Okay, he said don't worry about it. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, Brent, man, speaking about the kids, I just want to bring something up to you real quick, and then we can get back to the Jaguars and everything. I mean, this is Jaguars related as well, but this is more of a parenting segment here that sometimes we do on the show.
Like it?
As you know, my son is a Broncos fan. And he's becoming a bigger Broncos fan now because, well, obviously they're in the playoffs and he's feeling pretty good about them going to Buffalo to play Josh Allen. Hey, good luck to you with Bo Nix.
Good luck, kid.
Hey, it's going to be a rude awakening marathon. But am I failing as a parent, though, Brent, as somebody who literally played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, as someone who literally took his son to like media days and introduced my son to the Jacksonville Jaguars players to the point where Juwan Taylor was his favorite player for a while? Gross. Nothing against Juwan Taylor, but an offensive lineman. What are we doing, son? We had Joshua Hines Allen available, but nope. Juwan Taylor because he was the nicest one. Do I need to like really insert myself here and say, hey, I understand right now that it's kind of a sinking ship, but hopefully they get a new coach and we turn things around a little bit? And do I need to get him off the Broncos ship here?
Yeah, you might. He's an Oregon guy by trade, so that's kind of got him onto the Broncos thing. So that happens.
Got him the Bo Nix, yeah.
And what happens now is, listen, and he'll be, if Bo Nix in 4 years got traded to the Ravens, he would be a Ravens fan, right? Because that's kind of how fandom works, a little bit more individualized than team-wise. But I think actually it's an interesting point. You don't have to do anything. That's not really your fault. You can't help it. A lot of that's organic. But in part being organic is in 2022, you saw the Trevor Lawrence jerseys bought up in droves. We got to get back to that. Like, that's actually, like, I know you're kind of joking and kidding, but actually it's real. Like, we need, this organization needs Trevor Lawrence to be cool again, right? And first of all, they need him on the field. And secondly, he's got to play well. So not just kids in Jacksonville are wearing Trevor's jersey, but Trevor's the kind of guy that kids in Denver would wear Trevor's jersey instead of Bo Nix's if he's in the playoffs and playing well, right?
Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, absolutely. Because, I mean, as a kid who, was born outside of Chicago, but like moved to Wisconsin when I was little, it was all about the Green Bay Packers. And they were great. And, I was a Brett Favre diehard. Now, in retrospect, whoops. But at the time as a kid, like, Brett Favre was my hero. And I think when you talk about the next generations of fans, Brent, the younger generations, they want to cheer for a winner now more than ever, because with fantasy football, with Twitter, with highlights, airing nonstop, it's easy to be fan more of players than it is a team, especially when your city's team isn't doing so well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be willing to guess that if the Jaguars had any kind of sustained success these past couple years and made playoff runs, my son would be a Jaguars fan. But I can show him all the highlights, it's a couple of them, of me, sacking quarterbacks and everything. I can show him, I can give him the old jersey. Hey, put this on, dude. Hey, I got a Jaguars. Someone want to put it on? Nah. How about Bo Nix and Sean Payton and the Broncos? So
he's impressionable, but so are the kids.
He's impressionable, man.
And then there's a flip side of this. Because I'll tell you a quick story. I met some folks from Ohio at the game in Indy, and but they're Jags fans in Ohio. And I tweeted about this yesterday. I saw them, and their son's name, a little guy, he's probably like 5 or 6. His name was Gardner. And I was like, oh, they named that from Minshew? I was like, well, kind of. Yeah, it was around the same time, but we did like the name Gardner anyway, but it was a little bit of influence, right? So I was like, well, that's what's cool. Like, and these guys had a great time at the game the other day, right? The kids had a great time. They're like 5 and 7. And I told them the story. I was like, with all the stuff going on, like everybody's mad. The people we talk to are mad and everybody's angry and all this. But there's still a kid element of this where it's like, yeah, they like going to the game. Like, they don't understand all this, right? They don't understand all that part. Yeah. They don't understand the vitriol, and they don't care that Trent Baalke's the GM, quite frankly, if you're 5, 7, 9, 10, 12 years old. Now, you start getting to my kid's age and you care. But it's just the way it is. And so one more thought on that. After the Tennessee game, I'm coming down the stairs to go to post game. And there's a kid, and he's with his dad. He's kind of in front of me, and he's like, the Jaguars won. Like, he's so excited. And it's just like, it made me like pause for a second, because that dude was so excited to be at the Jags game. They won. He didn't care how many people were in the stands. He didn't care that they lost draft position. He didn't care about all that. Like, there's something cool about that still, right? That kid is wearing the Jags jersey, the Trevor jersey, or the whatever jersey to school the next day. So, like, there's still a part of that, even though I know we don't talk to those kind of kids, but moms and dads, what I say a lot. And I had this conversation with my kid, and he, he's so invested, right? Big Jags fan. And he now sees all of it and listens to it and all this stuff, and which is fine. But like, we got to a point in the conversation where I become almost like I try to do it. I say, listen, if Twitter's saying this, let me just give you the other side. All right? I'm not saying that they're wrong, or if we're yelling in front of a microphone, we're wrong, but there's also another side. Like, there's a full story here that this isn't the only story. From asking good questions to whatever. So he's like, well, you see all the fans, like, they're not renewing tickets. And I was like, when they hire Ben Johnson, people are going to buy tickets. Like, they're going to get excited. Now, some people won't. I had 1 million people say yesterday that they're not renewing tickets, and they might not. But I also think my point is not about a ticket buyer. My point is about an energy, and the head coach will provide an energy that will get you excited again, that you won't be living in just a Monday after the season that didn't go the way any of us planned or wanted or anything like that. And he's like, yeah, but you don't get it. This is different this time. I was like, no, I get it. I've done this for 16 years in Jacksonville. I understand it. I've heard it. I've lived through the sentiment of this fan base. Like, this fan base has threatened to never follow the Jags again multiple times. Like, I get it, and I understand their angst.
Let him say it, Brent. Like, listen,
this those are the conversations we have when he gets older, by the way. That's my point.
No, but like, and I think I made a mistake too, because like the games that I've taken him to, so I took him to the Texans game from like 2 years ago, where I'm like, all right, buddy, you ready to see a Jaguars win? And like, Dameon Pierce runs all over the team, and I forgot what the final score was, but they didn't score a touchdown. So in the next season, and I think this was after they beat Pittsburgh, or maybe like a couple games, maybe whatever. But it was the San Fran game, where I'm like, man, San Fran's pretty good, but I think the Jaguars might get them here, Rones. And they get blown out, don't score a touchdown. So my son has been to 2 games and he hasn't seen a touchdown. And I remember after the 49ers game, which was so bad, it was such a bad
awful.
Blow.
Yeah.
And I remember like in the fourth quarter, and I'm like, we can go. He's like, I want to see a touchdown. I'm like, okay, don't hold your breath. Well, let's wait and see. And then, they don't score a touchdown. And he turns to me. He's like, do you think I'm kind of the problem why they're not scoring? I go, you might be. I'm going to be honest.
Pretty great. Yeah, it's your fault.
It might be you more than anything. So yeah, maybe we'll just kind of chill out until we see a better team. So that didn't help at all. But Brent, I guess like where my and I'm gonna let him do what he wants to do. He's his own kid, man. Like I get it. I like the Bulls when I should have liked the Bucks, but it's Michael Jordan, so let's get serious, right? But what's frustrating to me about the whole situation, which he doesn't understand, and which all my friends back in Green Bay don't understand, it's not supposed to work like it's working for your teams. Okay? In Denver, you're not supposed to bring in Sean Payton. It's kind of a trouble in-house. Russell Wilson, that's kind of some bad blood. You kind of clean house and get a bad rapport with Jerry Jeudy. You let him go. And then you bring in a rookie in Bo Nix, who nobody really thinks is going to amount to, we'll see. And you go to the playoffs the first year that he's a quarterback? That's not supposed to happen like that, especially in a pretty solid division. Doesn't happen like that. In Green Bay, you have years and years of Brett Favre. You have years and years of Aaron Rodgers. Okay, you get this guy from Nevada, wherever he came from, and Jordan Love. Have fun in the dark ages a little bit, because there's always like that transition period, right, where you lose your all-pro quarterback, and then you can't really replace him, and there's going to be some dark ages. Nah, Jordan Love, go ahead and lead the Green Bay Packers on a playoff run right away and go ahead and make your money. Like, it's not supposed to work like that. But for whatever reason, it does. And we're stuck here in Jacksonville sometimes wondering, like, well, why can't we have that? Why can't we have what Green Bay has? Why can't we have what Denver has? And, it's almost like fans' guilt a little bit, where we see all these other fan bases celebrating, turning things around, and we're just sitting here thinking, like, all right, when's it going to change for us?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point we just said, and that was also kind of a conversation I had with the kid a little bit yesterday, and I think it's a fair one. It's a good one. Listen, the Jags organization should not be this bad. It should not be this bad. It should not hit the lows it hits. But I was also looking at that same Denver team. They haven't been in the playoffs, since 2015. The Jags have been twice in that time and actually won 3 playoff games. And Denver's a way better organization historically, right, than the Jags. So, like, I look at, and again, this is a guy that grew up in Rhode Island, New England, like the Red Sox, man. I dealt with it. I lived it. I lived the misery as a kid loving the Red Sox, and went through some just awful things, including Billy Buckner and everything else. Like, I get that part. But my frustration with this franchise is more the lows shouldn't be so low. It's not that you haven't gone to the playoffs every year. Like, that is more normal than people think, right? Winning a Super Bowl is really hard. Winning a championship is really hard. Like, people were, at least, I think they were bothered by the fact that winning a championship wasn't on Shad's expectation list when he said, what's the vision? It was more like going to the playoffs, which that's fair to say. Everybody says going to the championship, but in reality, everybody's vision is get me to the playoffs so then I have a chance for a championship, right?
Win a division first. Yeah,
win a division, right? Look at the Colts right now. The Colts, who have a good team and have had some good players, they haven't won a division. In Ballard's time, it's been 8 years. In this division, you can't win the AFC South once? That's miserable. We're not alone, is my point. That doesn't make it right. I'm just saying that's sports sometimes. And I think the bigger problem here is what we're talking about a little bit today, this transparency, how you deal with it, the organization, what you do. And then this other overarching part where doesn't it feel like, and you bring this up a lot, and I try like hell to defend it, my kid might bring it up, you guys in the chat might bring it up, where why do the Jags, and this is what's bothersome at the moment, why do the Jags seemingly, there's one thing to go outside the box, there's another thing to go, I'm the smartest guy in the room. And why does sometimes you feel like they fall into the smartest guy in the room category? Didn't it feel like that with Shad bringing back Trent Baalke? Doesn't it feel like that at times with Doug Peterson this year? On the podium, or what he's doing, or not being the smartest guy in the room and just calling the damn plays because he's better at it. With Ryan Nielsen, what are you doing with Eric Armstead? What are you doing with these players? It has felt too many times over the years that the Jags are not just outside the box and innovative and fresh, and no, it feels like they're trying to pull one over on you. Like, I know this and you guys don't. Well, the reality is this year, in many of the decisions that the staff made, the plan that got put together with this front office and staff made, didn't work. And we called it early that it wasn't going to work. They didn't have enough depth at edge. Armstead had to be used at the defensive tackle position. I keep
play
referencing
calling could be a problem.
Play calling could be a problem. I could reference the fact that in the middle of the season, it took 500 questions about Brian Thomas Jr. to get the coaching staff to finally throw him the freaking ball. Yeah. Like, why is that? Shouldn't be the case. You should not let the fans call plays and make decisions, but it also shouldn't be that we and the fans are right this much.
Well, and what it comes down to is like, listen, every single team's trying to go to the same spot, right? You're trying to win a division. You're trying to go to the playoffs. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. But for whatever reason, the Jaguars, year after year, it seems like they take the hardest road to try to get there when they don't have to. And once again, when you talk about taking the hardest road, it's up to the captain. It's up to the leaders. It's up to the management to say, this is the direction that we're being guided on, and it doesn't have to be that hard. But for whatever reason, you make it as hard as possible. And Brent, you just named a bunch of reasons why it was. And it's one thing if you think you're the smartest people in the room and you can back it up, then more power to you. You get the game better than we all do, right? Better than us casuals do. But that ain't the fact. We told you what it was. We told you what it was with Eric Armstead. We told you what it was with the play calling. We've been telling you what it is. And once again, Brian Thomas Jr., another example. And you want to maybe take some of the criticism, but you want to take the criticism when it's past the point of even fixing, right? And that's the most frustrating part. I get this team wants to win, Brent. I get Shad Khan wants to put out a winner. How could you not? Like I'm never going to question this team in terms of, well, do they want to win or not? I think they do. It's just a fact of why you take these long, drawn-out roads to try to get there. I'll never understand it.
Yeah, I think that's real frustration to the fan base. Honestly, I think that's frustration sometimes internally, too, with some people. Again, I can't name every person in the building. I just have some conversations, and I've heard some other things actually through the grapevine of, I think there's frustration in some of those things. Like, hey, listen, I believe it's hard. I believe putting 53 men together in a locker room with all different backgrounds, makeups, and getting the right chemistry is difficult. I actually thought Baalke got it right this year. I thought, hey, this is a good locker room. They added some winners from winning programs. That makes sense to me. I think this is going to... Well, he didn't. They couldn't win a close game, so you were missing something else. That's easy for me to say in hindsight. I actually applauded what they did in the offseason. I'll admit that. I thought that was going in the right direction. But at the same time, we also said you didn't have enough depth edge. You also should have been calling plays, and Armstead better served inside. And everybody said that. Like, why didn't they think that? And they weren't right. That's the problem. We want you to be right when you're making these things that, okay, that doesn't seem like it's right, but you know better. You're the expert. Well, it better be right. Yeah. And too many things aren't right. So that's it. So it's hard. Austin, it can be really hard to put a championship team together. Fully respect it. But then there are some things that you make harder than it needs to be. Doug even said it at times. We make football hard sometimes. Well, Doug, you're kind of preaching to yourself. You made football hard sometimes.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I mean, just kind of hearing you speak your piece here a little bit. I mean, I think the next time I'm in the cold tub or something, I might have to do a little research here. But what I'm really curious to see of all these head coaching candidates are which ones have maybe come from teams that have lost a little bit that have rebounded, right? Because that's what I've been saying more than anything. I feel like this year is this team didn't know how to lose. Now, obviously, yeah, you don't want to lose football games, right? But guess what? It's the NFL. Unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, somebody else, and it's just kind of wired for you to win, you're probably going to lose a little bit. But the key to losing is you don't let it snowball. You learn how to lose so it doesn't happen again. And this team could not get out of its own way when it came to losing. So I'm going to look at some of the research and say, like, all right, did Ben Johnson ever go like on a long losing streak? What was Mike Vrabel's longest one? Robert Saleh, obviously, we're a little more aware of it. But, like, I need a guy in here that doesn't come from a losing culture. That hasn't lost 5-6 games in a row. Because to me, that speaks volumes, right? Yeah, maybe you go on a 3-game losing streak, right? Maybe you played a murderer's row of teams. But eventually, you got to pick yourself back up and figure it out. and this team couldn't do it. And I'll be honest, Brent, I don't want to coach on this team for a new head coach that went through the same thing with his old team.
Yeah, well said. By the way, I even thought about you. They couldn't even lose right in the season finale. They had to go to freaking overtime to do it. Have a good day down in South Florida. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll talk more Doug Peterson and also some Trevor Lawrence tomorrow on the show, and we'll keep an eye on the coaching search. Have a good Tuesday, everybody. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jags Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242. You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing. Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, save 10% off a new Rinnai tankless water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
Here on Spring Sports Media Day on Action Sports Jax.
It's an opportunity, an education beyond the classroom and the sports arena. Life skills, testing skills, social skills. It's called High School 912, a program focused on maximizing the growth of students in academics, sports, and life. And here's your chance to get involved. If you're a local business, or if you just want to make a donation to help support programs like ACT and SAT boot camps, career days, Leadership Academy, Financial Literacy Academy, and so much more.
Another Nice High School Panther, Jack Cole.
High School 912 supports and hosts high school sporting events and several media days throughout the year. For more information on how you can get involved, visit jaxhighschool912.com.
It's the place we party in football season with Jaguars All Access. Welcome to Spring Sports Brewery, everybody. Say hello to our guest tonight. That is Trevor Lawrence. You can bring your party or event to Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield any day and any time. Rehearsal dinners, corporate events, birthdays. Here at Springs, you can enjoy the inside area and the outside area. Good for any weather, good for any occasion. Watch the games, play the games, shoot some hoops. Beer? Yeah, they have that. Plenty of choices. And sure, this is a brewery, but Strings is also a restaurant, and the food is fantastic.